Stockton is out there. They do snap it. And he's under pressure. And sacked. And the ball has come out. Sunterian Perkins.
Some really questionable decision-making all day yesterday, but specifically on the behalf of Georgia and their loss to Ole Miss. Stunning result. I'd argue it was the most stunning result of the day. Maybe not of the weekend because Miami beating Ohio State was pretty stunning, but Ole Miss beating Georgia did not have that one on the bingo card. Welcome into the Kevin Sheehan Show. Kevin is out today, as you might have guessed. He will be back on Monday. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on this Friday. We got a lot to get to with the Commanders. We're going to find out if people actually want to watch the Commanders this weekend, because that is going to be a tough sell to a casual fan. No starters for Philadelphia. Washington still playing some degree of starters, though obviously not everybody. I can't wait for that one. Yippee. Oh, yay. But the college football playoff yesterday, no Lane Kiffin, no problem for Ole Miss. And Lane Kiffin wanted to be at the game last night in classic Lane Kiffin form. And Lane Kiffin wanted to be on television last night. And ESPN, the mothership, said no. And then what happened was Ole Miss, after a debacle to end the first half, scored 20 against Georgia in the fourth quarter. Not just in the second half, in the fourth quarter. 20 of Ole Miss's 39 points against Georgia came in the fourth quarter in what I can only describe as domination. Domination from an offense of Ole Miss to a defense of Georgia, a defense that we traditionally think of as one of the better in college football. They could do nothing in the fourth quarter. And some of that, again, was their decision-making, because some of the decisions and going for it, when you heard coming in that Max played was a 4th and 2, that they decided to go for it and being a little too aggressive and not taking the points. It's funny, with no Lane Kiffin on the sideline, it's like Kirby Smart took over the immaturity that Lane Kiffin usually brings, and he decided, I'm going to use that for me. You know, when these two teams played the first go-around earlier in the season, and Georgia beat Ole Miss, and they did so in comeback fashion, you would watch Kirby Smart on the sideline, and he was a stone-cold killer. There's no emotion. He's not jumping up and down. He's not screaming at the refs. He's not pleading for calls. If something happened, it happened. He's on to the next play. And when Kirby Smart is in stone-cold killer mode, Georgia is in stone-cold killer mode. I don't know that I have seen a team, college or professional, that follows the lead of the head coach more than Georgia. And because he was doing it against Lane Kiffin, who traditionally goes for it on 4th down when he maybe should be taking the points, and gets a little aggressive, gets uber aggressive at points, Kirby Smart fell into that role, and Pete Golding, the interim and now full-time head coach at Ole Miss, the guy that replaced Lane Kiffin, just gave Ole Miss their biggest win in the last 50 years. And Kirby Smart's going wild on the sideline, and as soon as I saw that in the second half, the game was over, because they had lost mentally on that side of the field. And ironically, the team that, again, had one of the worst snafus to close a half, where you got 9 seconds and we are throwing towards the sideline. You got to get out of bounds. It's very simple. That's like Rule 101 in any level of football. With 9 seconds, no timeouts, a throw into the field but towards the sideline, do not cut that back upfield. And Ole Miss cut it right back upfield. The camera panned immediately to Joe Judge. There's a lot of you who maybe weren't very familiar with the coaching staff currently at Ole Miss. Joe Judge is there. He's been hiding a majority of the year because Lane Kiffin commands a lot of attention. but Joe Judge was there, and the spotlight panned immediately to him, and they're like, look at this idiot. Look at him not knowing how to do this. The comeback for Ole Miss was incredible. Chambliss goes for 2 touchdowns. K1 Lacey goes for 2 touchdowns. K1 Lacey, by the way, that's a sophomore. That guy's going to be a really good player next year.
I think him and Jeremiah Smith should just dare teams to take them in the draft this upcoming cycle.
Dare them to take that. Wait, is Lacey a redshirt sophomore or is he just a sophomore? I should know the answer to that question. Because I don't know that he's going to be available in the draft. If he's just a sophomore, he definitely won't be. You got to play another year. But if he's redshirt, let's see, is K1 Lacey a redshirt? Nah, he's not going to be available. So you're not going to get to see him in this year's draft class. But let me tell you, there's a lot of attention for Jeremiah Love right now, as there should be. Jeremiah Love is one of the best running back prospects that we have seen in a couple of years. I'm not calling him generational. He's not. I also hate that word when describing guys coming out of the NFL draft. But Jeremiah Love's a hell of a player, and he would be an immediate help to any offense. In a year, K1 Lacey is going to be the same thing. That dude runs hard, runs you over, has speed, has agility, hits the hole, can get skinny. Like, he does a lot of things really well at the running back position. That was on display last night. He had 22 carries, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Chambliss made a couple big throws. Big throws. I mean, the throw that he made where he basically ran back into his end zone, he's running one way and then commits the cardinal sin. He's running to his right, commits the cardinal sin of reversing field.
Spin the block.
But like a literal spinning of the block, and runs another 5 to 10 yards backwards to avoid Georgia defenders. I mean, the ultimate no play that you are going to see, because he then makes a big-time throw. And I actually thought the quarterbacks last night in the fourth quarter were playing really well.
They're electric, dude.
I mean, even Gunnar Stockton, who I was never a massive fan of, I thought he turned the corner after the Bama loss. He kind of got his head in gear a little bit, but then he lost it in the second half of the year and really towards the end with the Georgia Tech stuff. And then obviously last night, he made a throw where he looked a little too much like Marcus Mariota, where he's running and jumping, but still throwing. And
took some shots last night, boy.
There needs to be a clinic, or at least so all these quarterbacks during the offseason go to the Manning Academy,
of course,
or at least most of them do.
Because where else would you go?
Which is it's a couple-day camp run by the Mannings, and it's all quarterbacks. So think of tight end university that we see in the NFL, but at the collegiate level with all quarterbacks, and way less commercialized. Like, the NFL wants you to know tight end university
very
exists.
Much, yeah.
Very much. Here's a YouTube channel about it. We're going to send the podcasters to it. Here's a comedian. Like, Theo Vaughn is just there. Theo Vaughn is everywhere.
Because, like, Bert Kreischer takes his shirt off? How about that?
I'm so done with Bert Kreischer. Like, I was never really on with Bert Kreischer, but I'm, like, so off of Bert Kreischer. But more on that in a second. All of these quarterbacks are going to go to the Manning camp. There needs to be a 40-minute period. It doesn't even have to be 40-minute. It could be like a 10-minute period. But a block during the Manning camp. Say, hey, stay on your feet. Don't leave your feet. Like, just don't do it. The risk has never been worth the reward. Now, that play actually ended up working for Gunnar Stockton because he completed it. But he also got speared like he was Jeff Hardy hanging on a ladder, and the Ole Miss defender was Edge in a TLC match. Like, broken in half.
Crash dummy stuff.
Completely folding over. Then he got right back up. Tough dude.
Dog.
Literally. And Georgia kept moving. But just stay on your feet. One thing I hated about this game immensely at the end.
The final play?
The final 2 plays.
The stage getting rolled out onto the field 6 different times. I'd be pissed, by the way.
I would be pissed too.
So mad.
But honestly, Georgia deserved it. With 6 seconds left, you are down. As in, you need to score to prolong the game or to potentially win it.
To prolong your season.
This is not a tie football game. That's very important, right?
Quite.
One of the most famous plays in the last 15 years, the kick 6, not the same scenario. That's important
Correct.
to the story. taking the ball out of the end zone 8 yards deep
He was
insane.
His foot was like on the line.
He was
of the back of the end zone.
So deep into the end zone that by the time he took a step out of the end zone, the Ole Miss defenders were there, and then he was like, oh, crap, I need to throw the ball, and then that's how you got a safety. Just the dumbest, most self-important, most hero ball kind of play that an operation could have made. Hated it. And then there were the shenanigans to where they didn't know what time the ball went out of the end zone to justify a safety. If it was with 0, the game is over. You're not going to need to punt it. If it's with 1 second, you then have to punt it. And then the stage was rolled out because everyone assumed it was 0 and the refs weren't very clear. The stage gets rolled out. Golding gets drenched in Gatorade. Then the officials are like,
the Gatorade came.
That was the second time?
That was the second time.
So that was the second time. So they're celebrating the first time.
He's taking pictures with his family and doing the whole
you're right.
bit.
Because the second time, they had onside kicked the safety, which is a thing that you can do. I don't know that there's a lot of knowledge surrounding that because it doesn't happen very often. It's a very rare thing.
Wasn't much knowledge on Ole Miss side. They let Georgia touch the ball.
They just let him touch it and thought the time was going to come off.
Yeah, sure.
And then they dumped the Gatorade. You're right. So then they dumped the Gatorade on Pete Golding, who is also standing there like the game is still not over, I think.
And he's screaming in the ref's face.
He's like, I don't know what's happening. And then they get one more play, Georgia does. And it was probably the longest fumble-rooski, pitchy, woo-woo that you are going to see. I went to go back last night and rewatch the play with the stopwatch to see the amount of time that it actually took, because it feels like it took an eternity with them also really not moving the football very far. I think they might have actually advanced the ball 7 to 10 yards, and then they finished the play around where they started it because obviously just the nature of that kind of play. Somebody tweeted out the play-by-play transcript of that. And that's not from like Sean McDonough on the broadcast. That's if you look at a game cast on an ESPN or a Fox or whatever. And it tells you, it describes the play. So generally speaking, it would be like Gunnar Stockton, 5-yard pass to his left to Frazier. And that's it. It's a line, right? It's a sentence. And it's ball at the Georgia 38, 1st and 10, whatever.
Oh, this is quite long.
This is a paragraph.
It is a whole paragraph.
Let me read this to you. This was a 6-yard pass, is what it is described as. Gunnar Stockton pass complete to Colby Young for 2 yards to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Cash Jones for 1 yard to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Lawson Lucky for a loss of 3 yards to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Cash Jones for no gain to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Colby Young for a 5-yard loss to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Lawson Lucky for 6 yards to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Cash Jones for no gain to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Colby Young for a loss of 3 yards to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Dylan Bell for a loss of 8 yards to the Georgia 20. Lateral to Gunnar Stockton for a loss of 1 yard to the Georgia 30. Georgia penalty, illegal block, yards declined. So you can tell like some of the math wasn't quite mathing there. They did actually move from the Georgia 20-yard line. But because of the nature of the kind of play this is, I would not expect a scorekeeper to be like, oh, no, this lateral was to the Georgia 22, and then this one was actually the Georgia 18, but then this one was to the Georgia 26. It was just such a convoluted mess at the end of the football game. But we will have this transcript for forever. And honestly, let me just check this real quick, Max, before I mention this.
Sure.
If I can be that guy that ties this back into Lane Kiffin.
Of course.
If I were Lane Kiffin, I would have tweeted that transcript out.
He's been posting quite a bit. I'm sure, it's prior to noon. So we'll see if we get something like that over the next couple hours.
He is not posted.
Okay.
He was at the LSU women's basketball game last night.
That he was.
He was. He has posted a Trinidad flag to symbolize his quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss. So that is what Lane Kiffin has posted. But if I were him as a troll, I would have posted that. and the crazy pitchy woo-woo that it was.
I'm not going to rule it out.
It's coming. Just wait. We got more college football to get into, including a discussion that I had on social media that we are going to bring to the air. It'll be the subject of our poll question that you can find on our Twitter at the Team 980, and we will open up phones at 301-230-0980. If all are available, after watching the college football playoff games over the last 2 days, if all are available when Washington is on the clock in the first round, are you taking Reuben Bain, David Bailey, or Caleb Downs? That's next. It's Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
There's Everett who put pressure on it. It's Everett blitzing again off the corner. Chambliss retreating back near his own goal line. Picks up a block. Here we go again. Lacey, the catch, survives a big hit and gets the first down.
Massive play by Trinidad Chambliss. Sean McDonough is so good at calling games. He stepped up to the moment. We're going to have a conversation, by the way, about Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy. That's ESPN's best crew.
That's the A crew.
That's the A crew. Both guys are really, really great at what they do. Also, both are enjoyable people. I love listening to Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy call a football game. So our question right now, and this is available on the phones at 301-230-0980. It's available on Twitter as well. You can tweet me at the Denton Day. It's up on our page at the Team 980. After watching the college football playoff games the last 2 days, and assuming that all are available when Washington is on the clock in a few months. We don't know what draft position Washington has yet. We will know by the end of the day on Sunday. Assuming that all are available, are you taking Miami defensive end Ruben Bain, Texas Tech defensive end David Bailey, or Ohio State safety Caleb Downs? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. If there's somebody else that you would like to add to that conversation, the phones are the best place to do it. You can tweet me as well at the Denton Day. Now, had you asked me this on Wednesday, in fact, I think I alluded to this on Wednesday, I would have said Ruben Bain, because Ruben Bain had been playing awesome. And then on Wednesday against Ohio State, he was awesome. And that makes it a little tough to admit I was wrong. Wow. While I still like Ruben Bain, I watched David Bailey not single-handedly, but almost single-handedly keep a team that had one of the worst quarterbacks of the weekend, if not the worst quarterback of the weekend, but one of the worst quarterbacking performances in the history of the college football playoff in Baron Morton at Texas Tech. He was awful. He should have been benched. He wasn't benched. But David Bailey was so good that he kept Texas Tech remotely in the game for 3 quarters. By quarter number 4, it was over. They weren't going to bench Baron Morton. The game was over. I would take David Bailey. He's my guy moving forward. And I bring this question to the Air Max because I have been so confused after I tweeted this yesterday. The amount of people, because my initial tweet did not have Caleb Downs. My tweet yesterday was, if Ruben Bain and David Bailey are available at 7 and Washington does not draft either one of them, it would be unforgivable from the front office. You cannot go into 2026 without addressing the defensive end spot, and preferably without trying to go get a game record. And before you start to come and say, hey, what about free agency? There are no game records available in free agency. The best option would be Trey Hendrickson, assuming he gets to free agency, but he's coming off a big injury to the pelvic area, and he's also a little bit older. You have an opportunity to get a guy that is young, spry, athletic, not injured, and then build a core of the defense, something that this team does not currently have. There's nobody that makes up the core of what the defense is right now. And David Bailey, to me, is the best version of what you could get to fit any defense. I feel like he can play a 3-4. I feel like he can play a 4-3. If you want to get crazy and go 5 down, which you're not going to do in the NFL, but if you wanted to get crazy, you could go that direction. David Bailey is a home run hitter. A home run hitter. And if Washington drafts him at 5, 6, 7, whatever they're at, they're going to be cooking with gas. What you cannot do, and this is why I've been so stunned by the reaction to the tweet that I put up, This is not a defense that can use a top 7 pick on a safety. If you want to argue Ruben Bain, I'll hear it. If you want to argue David Bailey, I'll hear it. But Caleb Downs in this defense is not the right fit. This is not the same as the Kyle Hamilton snafu that Ron had multiple years ago. Hindsight 2020, yes. But at the time, you were walking into that draft saying, we got one edge, Montez Sweat, feel good about. We got another edge, Chase Young, had not had the massive fallout yet behind the scenes, we feel good about. A safety would be great and a great addition to that defense when you think that you are solidified at the front, because at that point you had Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, John Allen. This is in 2022. 2021 was not a great year, but that was more about like the Heineke stuff than it was the defense. And while Chase Young wasn't great and Montez wasn't great, there was still room to believe that maybe they can be and that you have the right group of the defensive line. You do not have the right group of the defensive line right now. If this team goes in with just Dorrance Armstrong and like one free agent addition, we're going to be marching on Ashburn this offseason. Like, it's an unacceptable thing to do. You have to get an edge guy. You have to. David Bailey is my guy. You're not using that pick on a safety. You're just not. If this was another year, sure. But you need to get a game wrecker. And Caleb Downs, he could be a great player in the NFL. In fact, I would put money that he's going to be a pretty good player in the NFL. I'm not going to say great because I thought Jeff Okudah years ago was going to be like a stone cold lockdown corner in the NFL, and he sucks. So there's something about Ohio State DBs where I'm like chilling a little bit. But I think that Caleb Downs has all the potential to be a good player in the NFL. David Bailey could be a legitimate game wrecker. And this defense needs a legitimate game wrecker. And the idea of either Bailey or Bain, but Bailey in particular, getting to learn under Von Miller, because Von Miller wants to play another year. Likely he's going to play another year here, because I don't know how many other teams are going to sign 37-year-old Von Miller. Get a year under Von Miller to learn the tricks of the trade. He already has crazy bend. We saw that against Oregon. He has a much bigger bag, I would feel like, than Ruben Bain does in terms of the versatility. He can play inside or he can rush interior. He can rush exterior. They did drop him into coverage. Don't really want to see that one, admittedly. But he can get after the passer. He has great IQ, and something that he did, and really all of Texas Tech defensive linemen did this, but something that David Bailey did a bunch yesterday that I would love to see here. Hands are always up.
Mm-hmm.
Always up. Watching, eyes on the quarterback, jumping at the line of scrimmage, batting balls down. It doesn't feel like there's a guy on the Washington defense that could do that regularly right now. And we have seen, I mean, we saw with the Van Ginkel stuff, but going back to the OG, self-interception, tap the ball up to myself, Ryan Kerrigan did that really, really well. I see a little bit of that in David Bailey. Now, I do think from a pure pass rusher, at least coming out of college, he is more polished than what Ryan Kerrigan was when Kerrigan was coming out of Purdue. But Kerrigan had a really good tenure here for a long period of time. And when you see some of those similarities in David Bailey and his ability to play the football while also rushing the passer, how does that not excite you? That gets me all steamed up. I love the idea of that. And I think it would be idiotic to pass up if he's available on him in favor of a safety. You have to get a guy that can get after the quarterback. And Downs does a lot of good things, and he does a lot of things really, really well. He does not get after the quarterback. You're not going to put him in like that Jamal Adams position. Remember when Jamal Adams was arguing that he needs to get paid like a safety and an edge because he was so good at rushing the passer? That's not what Caleb Downs is going to be. That's not even what I want a safety to be. Jamal Adams did swindle the Jets out of some money for that, but that's like not what I'm looking for at safety. I want David Bailey. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. You can tweet me as well. If all are available, this is the question. If all are available, who would you want Washington to draft? Ruben Bain, David Bailey, Caleb Downs. Max, your answer.
You're not going to like what I have to say.
You're going to say Caleb Downs.
Yeah, I am.
No, Max, no.
I understand. I get it. You make some great points about David Bailey, and I would not be as irate as some people on Twitter would be if they decided to go with David Bailey over Caleb Downs. But I love me a chess piece. I love me a chess piece that I could put literally anywhere on the field. Defense or offenses have no idea what if he's gonna be dropping back in coverage, if he's gonna be going after the passer. I love having that element of surprise in a defense, and Caleb Downs brings that and so much more. Just because imagine going from Quan Martin this year to Caleb Downs next year. I think that would fix a lot of issues on your back end. Now, not everything, because
I would argue that most people would fix some issues.
Yeah.
That Quan Martin might bring to the table. Now, I'm not on the train that like Quan Martin all of a sudden sucks and is the worst football player to ever exist ever.
No, but he had a bad year.
He has not been good this year. He has not been good this year.
Especially after we were told that he made some great strides coming into this season, which,
LOL.
Yeah, worries me about.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah. So I like Downs, but again, if they go Bailey, or I'm not even sure if Ruben Bain is the best edge rusher on Miami.
Yeah, they got some
Mesidor
dudes.
looks so
good.
good.
Hakeem Mesidor does look really good. And, Texas Tech has a bunch of guys on that defensive line that are also really good. I mean, that unit, both of those two units.
I will be watching a lot of their tape.
A lot of it.
Months.
And it's going to be really fun to see Miami and Ole Miss, because Ole Miss's offensive line has been pretty decent this year. I would say maybe a little bit better than what Ohio State is. Ohio State's offensive line is not very good in relativity to what they normally are. And they didn't play a good schedule this year. There were not a lot of premier defenses, period, that they went up against outside of Texas in week number 1 and then Indiana in the Big Ten championship, and then obviously Miami on Wednesday. I'm really excited to see what Ruben Bain is going to look like against Ole Miss, because he dominated against Texas A&M. He dominated against Ohio State. If he does it again, this is a trend that he is putting forth. So I'm going to be excited about that. I do have, before I get to the phones, and we're coming to you, don't worry, 301-230-0980. I am getting some questions in the chat. We're on YouTube, stream us at the Team 980, and on Twitter at the Denton Day about Max Crosby. No would be the answer. It's not happening. Washington does not have the amount of draft capital
or
right now.
Player capital at this point.
Or player capital at this point to be able to acquire Max Crosby. Crosby is frustrated with Las Vegas. Understood. He just signed a massive contract. And it is going to suck for Vegas financially if they trade him after signing him a year after to a massive contract. It's going to suck to the point where they would need serious draft capital in return. And Washington does not and should not provide that kind of draft capital when you can get a quality, potentially borderline great. I mean, if we're 5 years from now, let's just say it's 2026 now. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I meant to mention that at the top. It's 2026 now. If we're in 2031 and David Bailey has been signed to a $45 million per year contract, I'm not stunned.
First off, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Dan. David Bailey has legitimate potential to be an upper echelon pass rusher in the league. I think Ruben Bain does as well. But David Bailey has the potential to be an upper echelon pass rusher in the league. If you believe in that potential, you draft him and you don't trade for Max Crosby. Max Crosby is frustrated. Let somebody else deal with a frustrated guy where you're going to have to give up multiple first-round picks, because there is no world where you can trade for Max Crosby without giving up multiple first-round picks, if we're being realistic. If we're being unrealistic, Deron Payne and a bag of chips for Max Crosby, who says no? If we're being realistic, it's taking at least 2 firsts and probably a second or a third to go along with that. This roster is not in a position to make that kind of trade going into 2026. On the flip side, if you want to argue trading back from 5, 6, or 7, whatever pick they end up with by the end of the weekend, I'd be more open to that. However, I don't think you can pass up a legit potential game wrecker at the edge spot the way that David Bailey is. And I've been trying to do a little bit of mental math here. Mendoza is going to go high, the quarterback at Indiana. He played really well yesterday against Alabama. I think what would be best suited for Washington is if they land the 6th overall pick, which some things are going to need to happen this weekend. Ben Standing will be with us at noon. He'll kind of break these scenarios down for us in terms of how Washington could land 6th. 5th is still technically available, but a lot needs to happen for Washington to get the 5th overall pick. It feels like 6 or 7 are going to be the likely landing spots for the Commanders in the draft. If they get 7, they need Dante Moore to come out, because then you're getting 2 quarterbacks that are going to go top 5. Moore would probably go number 1 if he comes out over Mendoza. Mendoza would go number 2. One of them would be a New York Jet.
One will be a Jet and one will be a Raider.
And one would be a Raider, right? So we need those 2 quarterbacks.
Cardinals, I'm sorry, you're SOL.
To come out. No, hold on. Time out. Pause on the field. We need the Cardinals to then fall in love with another quarterback.
Ty Simpson.
If the Cardinals, I wish Ty Simpson had one good throw yesterday.
Oh, if only, man.
I mean, could he have just had one? Could you given us one? If the Cardinals fall in love with a quarterback, you are then guaranteed this scenario. But if Dante Moore comes out, you get Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, Avril Reese. Caleb Downs, I don't think is going to be available at 6 or 7. I'm just adding him into the conversation because so many people tweeted me about Caleb Downs. So we'll throw Caleb Downs. That's 4 guys right there. You're going to get an offensive lineman that people are going to fall in love with. And then that's 5. So if you're at 6, you then have Ruben Bain, David Bailey, Kendrick Falk from Auburn is another available option at defensive end. Peter Woods from Clemson, TJ Parker. Like, there's a bunch of other guys that would be available in the later stages. But if Dante Moore comes out in this year's NFL draft, it almost guarantees that either David Bailey or Ruben Bain is going to be available either 6 or 7, because I haven't even factored in Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, who in the pre-draft process could really elevate up draft boards. Ryan Fowler from the Draft Network is going to join us in about 20 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on some of those guys. But your thoughts are next. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Assuming all are available for Washington in the NFL draft, would you take David Bailey, Ruben Bain, or Caleb Downs? Your call's next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin.
All right. Happy New Year, everybody. Here's what's happening. We start off with the college football playoff as quarterfinals wrapped up last night. Miami, they move on after defeating Ohio State in a gritty defensive effort, 24-14. Oregon, they shut out Texas Tech yesterday, 23-0. And the Indiana Hoosiers put their stamp on Alabama in a 38-3 victory over the Tide. Finally, that brings us to an instant classic last night between Ole Miss and Georgia. The Rebs with a slow start in the first half, but they storm back with a 20-point fourth quarter. Trinidad Chambliss leads the Rebs to a 39-34 win over the Dogs. Plus, hometown teams, the Caps, they fall in a New Year's Day matchup versus the Ottawa Senators. But Tom Wilson continues his hot streak since being named to Olympic Team Canada with his 5th goal in the last 7 periods of action. But the Caps, they give up one late in the third, and the Sens win 4-3. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Dan Lanning, I'd go for it here.
They've rolled the dice all day. Can they cash in right here? Sprint right, looking to the end zone. It is batted down. David Bailey does it again. They've rolled the dice all day. Can they cash in right here? Sprint right, looking to the end zone. It is batted down. David Bailey does it again.
David Bailey stopped that game from being worse than it was for Texas Tech. He did, unfortunately, cost me money in the process. I live bet Oregon, Texas Tech over 27.5. Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Our question right now on the phones before Ryan Fowler joins us at 11 a.m. If all are available, who do you want after watching each of these players over the last 2 days for Washington to draft? David Bailey from Texas Tech, Ruben Bain from Miami, Caleb Downs from Ohio State. Max says he wants Caleb Downs. I want David Bailey from Texas Tech. Let's go to Luke. Luke is in D.C. Luke, you're on the Kevin Sheehan Show. What's going on?
Yo, Denton, you really got my juices flowing this morning, man. Because I'm like the biggest David Bailey fan club ringleader on the planet. Like, he literally he won me over in one game yesterday. Like yesterday, When I watched him, I was like, this guy is a maniac. He doesn't wear gloves. He doesn't wear wrist tape. He doesn't wear any paraphernalia of the team. He wears white socks. Dude smells an Adam Peters type of guy, commando tags. Like, he reminds me sort of like, I mean, this is a defensive tackle. And this guy's played when I was, like, really young. John Randall.
Oh, the guy that used to get smacked before games.
Yeah, that dude was a freaking maniac. And I know this guy's an edge rusher, but he plays the same motor, in my opinion. I would not want to, like, I would not want to sit next to him in the locker room before a game. like, I would not want to sit next to David Bailey in the locker room before games. I feel like he would try to, like, jack me or something like
that. Luke, I appreciate the call. I'm glad that you are on the David Bailey hype train, because this train is not slowing down. I can tell you that. I want David Bailey, and I'm glad that Luke mentioned this. The no gloves thing.
The lack of drip is the most drip.
It is the most drip. It actually entices me a little bit more to want to see him, because you have to be a different kind of player to not care about all of the other stuff, like all of the swag-related things in the year of our Lord 2025, now 2026. So this guy's playing in a college football playoff game with no gloves. He has socks on, but barely. Like, it's literally just
little ankle socks.
The football pants come up to the knees, and then there's nothing until you get to the ankle socks. And then for the beginning of the game, which you can't do this in the NFL, but for some reason you can get away with it in college, he basically has his jersey pulled up to around his nipple area. And you see, like, the portions of the pad coming out underneath of the jersey. Like, it's the most insane thing, but it's the coolest thing at the same time. And I love a guy that doesn't care about all of the swag related things, but also understanding that is a swag related thing. And then he goes out there and he balls out. You got to be a psycho to not wear gloves to play football. That's a special kind of player. Ross is in Tampa. Ross, what up, man?
What's going on? Yeah, man. I was leaning down too, because, like, it just reminds me so much. He just has, like, so many intangibles that I want out of the safety. But I feel as though if they draft him that high, and this will be the highest safety we've got since Sheehan, there's got to be some big red flags about these defensive ends, or they just feel as though they might be some defensive ends, like, deeper into the draft that they could develop. But no, if I had to choose between the edge rushers, I'm going Ruben Bain. But yeah, I just thought about that too before the guy had mentioned it. No gloves, no armbands, just straight raw football player. So either way, man, regardless, I'm happy with whichever pick they go. I'm leaning more edge rusher, but I want Caleb Downs because they couldn't land him at Georgia out of high school. They couldn't do it when he left Bama. And just like the Pacers, man, it's good when you tank and you've got all these options at your disposal. So regardless of what that pick's going to be, I'm excited either way.
Ross, appreciate it as always, man. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you giving us a ring. You can join us, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. So Ross mentioned the Sean Taylor thing with Caleb Downs. I see a guy in the chat mentioning the Sean Taylor thing with Caleb Downs. If you're drafting Caleb Downs in the hopes that he becomes Sean Taylor, do not draft him. Don't. That's an unrealistic expectation. That's unfair to the player, setting, hey, we want you to be a guy that the fan base is super fond of, that we tragically lost now almost 20 years ago, which is crazy to think about. Don't draft him if you just want him to be the second coming of Sean Taylor. That's not fair to him. I also don't know that they're not similar players at all. Like, they're very, very different. They just happen to play the same position. So, like, I need the fan base to kind of get that out of the back of their mind. That is not why you should be interested in Caleb Downs. Now, Max, you gave up some good reasons as to why you are, so I can understand that. But if it's just because he plays the same position as Sean Taylor and we haven't had a great safety in such a long time, that is not why you should be drafting Caleb Downs. Mark is in Largo. Mark, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? I've gone back and forth with that. I got two other suggestions outside of the when you were talking about the three. Arvell Reese, who's at Ohio State.
Yes.
And I like Keltrick Falk. And the only reason why I like Keltrick Falk is then I think the Commanders are going to have to trade back because they're going to have to get a second-round pick. And I think we could sit and talk about picking seventh, and that's fine. We can get Reuben Bain or Bailey, maybe Reese or and stuff like that. But the reason why I said Falk, if you trade back to like a 13 or 14, Keltrick Falk is probably he plays at Auburn. He's a man child.
He'll be available then.
Man.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He'll be available more likely than not.
And you probably could get him then and stuff. But I just think they need a second-round pick. More than anything this year, the Commanders need a second-round pick. I'm hoping they could stay at 6 because they're at 6 right now. I don't know why everybody keeps saying that they're 7. They're at 6 right now. And, maybe they stay at 6. Maybe they move to 5. But if they move down to like 11 or 12 and get a second-round pick, maybe you get the Keltrick Falk. Because if you get him, you can move him on the outside. He's 6'6". He could. I mean, he's a man child. He could move him all over, move him everywhere, really. And he played at Auburn. Look, I have nothing against Bailey, and I think he's a great player. I monitor the teams that the competition they've gone up against, Denton, and that's why I'm more into Reuben Bain. I just don't think if we trade back, Bain's going to be there.
No, I don't think he will be.
No, but I think Falk will be there. Maybe Reese will be there. Maybe Reese. But
no, Arvell Reese is going top 3.
They need a second-round pick.
Yeah, Mark, I appreciate it. Arvell Reese is going top 3. That's why he's not on this list. He is right now. It feels like, and this might change in the pre-draft process, but if we're just going based off of the information that we have now, Arvell Reese is likely going to be the first defensive player off of the board. He's going to be probably the number 2 overall pick. It depends. And when Mark said the reason why we say 6 and 7 right now, Washington is at 6, but there's a very easy avenue for some things that happened this weekend for them to get to 7. Part of that is with the Cleveland Browns, but then it's also with the strength of schedule thing. It's so convoluted. It's very easy to lose yourself because if somebody else wins that is not the Cleveland Browns, but it impacts how their strength of schedule would look, it gets really, really weird. And I'm also just not anticipating that Cleveland is going to win this weekend, which makes it then very difficult for Washington to jump them. Because one of the things that would hurt is if Washington wins, they're obviously not going to be there with Cleveland. If Washington loses and Cleveland loses, well, then Washington's strength of schedule gets better because Philadelphia gets another win. And you need a worse strength of schedule to win the strength of schedule tiebreaker. It's so weird. It's so convoluted. It's so all over the place. Let's squeeze one more quick call in here. Bob is in Ocean City. Bob, quickly.
Hey, Happy New Year. Great show, fellas.
Appreciate it.
Here's the guy I'm going with. I'm going with Bain. Why? Because he's 20-some pounds heavier on the chart that the list of the guy from Texas Tech. He's also younger. He's also played, I think, against better competition. He's also played on natural grass. We're going to draft a guy for 10 or 12 years. That's an edge. A little bit, every bit counts, man. I just think the guy's the player. We're going edge because we need 4 of them, not 1. We need 4 of them. Trade for 1, draft for 1, sign 2 free agents. That's all I got, brothers. Happy New Year.
Bob, appreciate it. Happy New Year. Happy Thanksgiving. Good stuff there. We'll continue this conversation as we move forward. But coming up next, Ryan Fowler covers college and the NFL. Great draft mind. We're going to get his take on these prospects and some guys outside of the list that we've mentioned to see if maybe trading back is an option for Washington. He joins us on the other side. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin.
First off, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
We will get to the game at hand this weekend with Washington and Philadelphia, although admittedly, that game is going to suck and it's going to be very difficult to watch because no one is going to be playing, and the season ended weeks ago for Washington, but we're still looking ahead. I want draft. I love draft.
Always.
And there's nobody better than Ryan Fowler. Ryan Fowler joins us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. Ryan, how much fun have you had the past 2 days watching some of the top prospects play in the hope for the national championship?
Man, it's been great. First off, Ben, appreciate you having me, man. Happy New Year to you and yours. It's been great, man. It's been great. I love watching ball this time of year. It's really, for Washington's perspective, unfortunately, seen a lot of really, just, scouting the offseason. It's been their Super Bowl for decades now. Now, hopefully, moving to this year with a major offseason, right, for Dan Quinn and Adam Peters. But it's always a joy watching these big-time ball players go at it. Blue chip recruits, 4 stars, 5 stars, guys even lower, guys like Trinidad Chambliss, really kind of let the nation know, hey, he can play ball even at the highest level. So just a lot of fun watching these guys really let their socks store, or for some of the guys, let it slip a little bit as well.
So we've been having a conversation about available options potentially for Washington and who they should go with should certain guys be available. One of the guys that I am in love with is David Bailey, and that would be my selection if I'm Washington. What did you see when you watched him yesterday and when you watched him throughout the course of the year?
Yeah, entering even yesterday, he was my edge one in this class, Denton. I know the consensus is really revolving around Ruben Bain. I think he's an outstanding football player as well. But every time you watch David Bailey on tape, whether it was at Stanford or whether it's been this year at Texas Tech, he is the most explosive pass rusher in this class. He can affect the game in a variety of ways. As you saw him batting down passes yesterday, if he's not able to get to the quarterback, I think he's just a flat-out dominant potential type of football player at the NFL level that can win with speed. He can win through your chest plate with power. You saw the versatility that he has dropping into the fringe areas if you have to. Now, you're not drafting him to play in the fringe areas in coverage. You're asking him to pin his ears back and get you 10-plus sacks a year. But he is edge one for me right now in this class, and specifically for Washington, where you got to get guys that can get after the passer. You tried it in years prior drafting guys like Chase Young and Montez Sweat. You thought they would be these elite types of guys. In my opinion, I think David Bailey is the premier pure pass rusher in this class. Again, sensational yesterday in that ball game. And I'm very, very excited to see him in a couple weeks, Denton, in those one-on-one situations down there in Mobile, where I think he's going to absolutely solidify himself as a top 10 pick in this class.
Has he officially accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl in Mobile?
He has, yes.
Oh, that's going to be, and that's your bread and butter too. You're going to be in heaven for a couple of days.
And it's a loaded group down there. That Drew Fabianich, taking over for Jim Nagy down there in Mobile, the Senior Bowl, has a really good group going down there in just a couple weeks. So it should be a lot of fun.
Is the Ruben Bain arm length a big deal or no deal?
I don't think it's a deal at all. I'm not going to say, hey, it's apples to apples with what we talked about last year, with Will Campbell on the opposite side of the ball at LSU. But I just watched the tape, and tape never lies. For a lot of people, I beg you guys, hey, just turn on the film just a little bit of Ruben Bain. He is the most elite run stopper in this class, whether it's an edge guy or an interior player. And then he is the most powerful edge rusher in this class. Really, for me, the best power rusher I've seen since Jared Verse out of Florida State. And he's even got some George Karlaftis to his game as far as the ability to win with power and win with the hand swipes, the rips, the dips, the things that he can do at 3 tech, at 5 tech, outside the shoulder of the tackle. Just a very versatile and powerful player that really has only gotten better as the season has gone on. And I'm very excited to see him against this Ole Miss front five and Trinidad Chambliss next time we see this Miami Hurricanes group, because that's another guy right alongside David Bailey, right alongside, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs. How is that group of 4 of these elite defenders going to separate themselves, whether you're still playing or whether you're now preparing for the pre-draft process?
And just confirming something that you tweeted yesterday, Washington was in attendance, or they had a representative in attendance for Texas Tech and Oregon to see David Bailey and others on the field, correct?
Correct, they did, yes.
Do you know if they were present at any of the other games this week?
I did not receive any information for those other games, but I did know that they were exactly at Texas Tech and Oregon.
So you mentioned that David Bailey is your edge one. Are you including Arvell Reese in that edge conversation, or do you look at him as more of an outside linebacker?
Right now, he's more of that hybrid type of player. And when I say hybrid, I don't want people to think, hey, he's going to be Micah Parsons. I think he's a player right away that you can play on 100% of the snaps. I just think right now within Washington's defense specifically, where there may be a change, a potential scheme, I just right now don't know exactly what to do with Arvell Reese. Is he a pure edge? I don't think so. Is he just a pure off-ball backer? I don't think so. Is he going to have that Abdul Carter type of transition to the NFL where it's just pure edge rusher? I think so, potentially in the next year or two of his career. But Denton, we could also ask the same question about Ruben Bain right now, because there's some questions among scouts whether he's at 275 pounds. Is he a guy that lives in the interior, or is he a guy that can also hang out on the outside, play with his hand in the dirt, and standing up as well? Now, he continues to answer those questions, but those are some of the things. They're really nice prospects. They are blue chip prospects, but those are little things that scouts going to try to delve into and find as far as how they separate these guys once we get to late April and these names start to get turned in.
You know, I was going to ask you about Ruben Bain, so I'm glad you brought us in that direction. That talk has been getting louder and louder about scouts seeing him as a more of an interior guy than an exterior guy.
Yeah, and I think a good thing is, I don't have issues with him on the inside, but I'm not drafting Ruben Bain if I'm Adam Peters or if I'm any NFL GM in the top 7 or 8 picks to claw gaps in the ground game and to allow my linebackers behind me to play free. I'm drafting to get after the quarterback, and that's with living outside the left tackle or the right tackle, pinning your ears back and getting after people. Now, I think from Washington's perspective, I think what really translates and what really would draw them to Ruben Bain, Denton, is that he can stop the run as far as off the edge, and they haven't been able to do that, really seal those C gaps for what seems like a decade, really since Ryan Kerrigan was in town years ago. They need somebody to help in sealing the edges, back and shed, get off blocks, and make plays in the perimeter. He is the elite player in the class to do that, but if they want somebody a little lighter, a little bit more juice, a little bit more twitch, that's when the conversation comes around with David Bailey and even the likes of Arvell Reese as well.
Where do we factor in? We're talking with Ryan Fowler here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. Where do we factor in Kendrick Falk out of Auburn? We haven't got to see him play because Auburn was not very good this year, so we haven't seen him play in the college football playoff. What do you think his upside is in the NFL?
I think it's immense. I really do. I think he's an extremely versatile player. I mean, a massive human being, 6'6", weighed in at 281 pounds in season. Those are some verified measurements I got from the Auburn staff. So that's a guy that is a big physical type of player, looks the part. I wanted to see a little bit more consistency from him throughout the year against SEC competition. I wanted to see a little bit more alignment versatility up front, like I talked about with Ruben Bain. But overall, I think this is a very good player where his best football is going to be down the road. And I think what I like most about Keldrick and his tape is there's a plan. There's a pass rush repertoire. It's not just, hey, I'm going to line up and I'm going to try to be the best athlete on the field and win to your outside shoulder every single time, like Washington saw for Chase Young for a few years before his departure. He has a plan every single time before the ball is snapped. I think that's what's going to translate right away before he can really combine the power, the speed, the counters, and everything he can do as a run defender as well.
Is Dante Moore going to come out in this year's NFL draft?
I think he should. He's QB1 for me in this class. He had a chance absolutely to go number 1 overall. Mendoza obviously has been sensational this year, and he can win in a variety of ways, whether he's got to throw it 40 times or he's got to throw it, 20 times like we saw yesterday. More touchdowns and incompletions was simply outstanding against that Alabama defense. But I think for Dante Moore, just what you see in his game, poised passer, arm talent off the charts. I think a main question right now for scouts, Denton, is the games, the amount of experience that he's had in college football is a little bit of a question. But overall, the fundamental talent and what he can bring to an NFL roster, expanding a playbook, is absolutely there. And if I were him and if I was his reps, I'd be preaching to him to declare for this draft.
So there's some other Commanders fans that have said, hey, what about Carnell Tate, Denton? Need a wide receiver on the outside. I like Carnell Tate, Ryan. I don't know that I like him where Washington is drafting right now. Is he good enough to be taken in the top 10?
Not right now for me. He's more in that 15 to 25 range. There are a couple concerns, and they even popped up the day before against Miami, working over the middle of the field, not wanting to get hit, taking those big hits. Those hospital balls, what you call it. You got to go above your head and take a shot to your stomach. A little bit more physicality. That's what a wide receiver 1 does. If you're drafting a guy in the top 10, that's wide receiver 1 type of capital. Now, for Washington perspective, of course, you got Terry McLaurin in the building, and you may potentially also have Deebo Samuel if he comes back. But if I'm Washington, I'm not drafting Carnell Tate. I'm not drafting any of these receivers in the top 10. You could potentially wait till day 2. Let's see if they also trade back, maybe get some more capital if they're working into day 2 and they really like a Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M, or even a guy I really like in Malachi Fields, big body, 6'4", Virginia transfer to Notre Dame, I think that's more so the bucket where I would add a receiver to this receiving group.
I don't think he fits in Washington, but he is one of my favorite players to watch from just an explosiveness and versatility. What do you make of Zachariah Branch?
Yeah, you hit it on the head, Denton. He is explosive. He is lightning in the bottle. And I think one thing watching him in that ball game yesterday, he's always a guy that you can get designated touches, get in the backfield, known as a return man. But he really showcased the full route tree, I feel like, yesterday. His ability to win at all 3 levels. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but scouts love when guys play bigger than their frame instead of the opposite when you're big and you play small. Zachariah Branch plays kind of reminds me of Jahan Dotson a little bit coming out of Penn State. In the best way possible, his ability to really go up and attack the football. So just the route tree is expanding for him. I think he's going to be a really good player at the next level wherever he ends up. And I will say this, if you potentially end up in Washington, I think the skill set's a little bit repetitive, Stanton, with Jalen Lane and Deebo Samuel. But that's a hell of a player, and I know Jaden Daniels, the guy that can elevate everybody around you.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself because I guess Washington should be kicking themselves because I like Jalen Lane. He's a great punt returner, but he hasn't shown us a ton on the offensive side. And I do feel like Branch would fit, but then you just drafted Lane, and you don't want to get too back and forth with all that. I have not asked you about Caleb Downs yet from Ohio State. What have you seen from him, and what kind of game changer could he be at the safety position?
He really is. He really is a game changer, Denton. And I mean this in the best way possible as far as from a talent perspective, not a career arc. If Washington were to draft him at 7, if he's available, he would enter as arguably the most talented defender, specific at the safety position, to enter Washington since Sean Taylor. And I really say that with the most due respect to Sean. But what a player he is. At all 3 levels, he can come in right away, play 100% of the snaps. He's someone that can eliminate tight ends. He can work out to running backs. He would impact the ground game as well. He tackles his tail off. He's just a guy right away where you need that matchup type of player, a versatile defender, a guy that doesn't just lead with a pregame speech. He leads on the football field, in between the hashes. And that's what Washington needs more of on this football team, because right now, really the only guy that shows up is Jacob Martin week to week to week to week for me as of right now. They need more players like that will show up and compete. And Caleb Downs, I just think his ability to compete at all 3 levels, impact coverage, impact the ground game, play in the fringe areas, always near the football. The athletic profile is off the charts. Now, do people wish he was a little bit bigger and had that Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James type of frame? That's fine. That's fine. Then they can save that. But Caleb Downs is just a flat-out really good football player. And if I were Washington, he's on the board there at 7. That's who I'm taking right now.
So I'll get you out of here on this, Ryan. Are there any players? We talked about the top 1% in the draft, right? Guys that are likely going to go top 10. I think worst, Carnell Tate might go like top 15, right? Is there anybody this weekend that you watched that you thought, hey, I like this player, that you now think much more highly of because of the way they performed in a big-time game?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if there's one guy, it's Oregon defensive end Mateo Uiagalelei, DJ's younger brother. I think his ability, first off, right away as a young player in the NFL, you got to get on the field on early downs, and you have to be able to feel. And then pin your ears back and get after the quarterback and have a varied approach there. I think his ability to do that, and as he's gotten better and better and better along that loaded Oregon defense that was simply outstanding yesterday against Texas Tech, I really do think then if there was one player, even Elijah Surratt, the receiver from Indiana as well. I would say both Mateo and Elijah, both those guys yesterday really impressed me.
Ryan, you're the best. I always love talking draft with you. Enjoy the rest of the college football playoff. I'm sure we'll connect again when it's Senior Bowl season.
Absolutely. Thanks as always, Dan.
That is Ryan Fowler, one of the best when it comes to analyzing college players and projecting how they will wind up in the NFL and where they will be drafted. I did text Kevin yesterday, Max, during the Georgia-Ole Miss game, and the text was very simple. It just read, Zachariah Branch would be so effing good with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And Kevin, he liked the message, and he was like, he would be. But he's not gonna be here. I would love nothing more than like Zachariah Branch, like top of round 3. Maybe you can get him in round 4. Might have to dance around, move some picks to get him. But he's such a weapon.
Number 70 on the big board. What do we got? We're like, what, 72, 73?
70 on that big board. I'm looking at Pro Football Focus. that has him at like 114. So he like these big boards now are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really good wide receivers. Jordan Tyson is going to be the top one. Carnell Tate is behind him. Mekhi Lemon at USC is a name that people are going to familiarize themselves with. Denzel Boston, who's 6'4" from Washington. Casey Concepcion, he's a little shorter at 5'11". Surratt is 6'2" out of Indiana. Chris Bell is 6'2" out of Louisville. Jeremy Bernard is 6'1" out of Bama. Chris Brazil is 6'5" out of Tennessee. There are going to be some available options in the later portion of the draft for Washington to draft at wide receiver. CJ Daniels out of Miami is 6'2". Jacoby Lane from USC is 6'4". There are some dudes that will be available. You got to go defense early, but I would love Zachariah Branch in a weapon sort of position. Kind of like think of what you imagined Deebo Samuel was going to be in 2025 had everything gone correct this year for Washington. Zachariah Branch would be killer in that role. Just absolutely killer. Coming up in 15 minutes, Cole Thompson's going to jump on with us. We'll get his thoughts on the college football playoff. We haven't really talked a lot about Kurt Cignetti. I do want to play a piece of audio from him last night after Indiana's win. This dude is impossible not to like. A crazy 180. You hear that when we get back. Is Denton Day sitting in for Kevin Sheehan on the Kevin Sheehan Show?
How would you describe the turnaround and what you've been able to build in a short period of time?
It'd be a hell of a movie.
That's Curt Cignetti. You can Google him after Indiana stomped Alabama. Like, just beat their brains out.
It was so over that halftime came around and I was like, kind of want to see how this game's going to go.
You're like,
And
maybe, just maybe, because they did it to Oklahoma, they can come back from a 17-0 deficit. But they're not coming back from a 17-0 deficit.
Watch that first drive. I was told it's time to go to dinner. I said, all right, you know what? Fair enough. This thing's over.
I'm good. Let me get a meal in so that I can be ready and locked in for Ole Miss and Georgia as the nightcap. That's pretty much
locked in we were.
And locked in we were. I mean, the turnaround that Curt Cignetti has been able to do in a 2-year period should give programs like Maryland hope. It should give programs like, let's just say, Virginia Tech hope, like UVA hope. I mean, UVA had a good year this year. But Curt Cignetti took a program that was the laughing stock. And Virginia Tech is not a laughing stock. UVA was kind of a laughing stock. Maryland is currently a laughing stock in football. But he took a program and he did a complete 180 to where Indiana just beat Alabama in the college football playoff by 1 million. That's a football school now.
Ole Miss beat Georgia, Oregon, a team that historically has had a lot of regular season success, but not a lot of playoff success. And now you got Miami getting into the mix after they are coming out of quite a dark period for Miami football. So it's the world of college football has changed, Denton.
It's a bad time to be an SEC fan.
Oof.
I don't know that there's a lot of SEC fans in this particular area in our footprint. I'm sure there's some of you that went to SEC schools and that are from here, or you have children that might go to SEC schools, so you become a fan by proxy because of your kids. The SEC is coming face-to-face with a reality. With an even playing field, it's really tough to win. For so many years, they were the ones that were paying the athletes and paying the players under the table more so than anybody else to be really, really good. And they were really, really good.
Great, even.
Really, really good. One of the most dominant runs in terms of winning national championships that you will find. But when everybody else can do it, it's a lot more difficult.
It's tough, man.
When Indiana can do it, it's a lot more difficult. Now, for Indiana, I mean, it's not even like they paid to win the way that the Texas Tech did, which is not a knock, by the way. That's in the rules. You could pay players now. You should be paying to build a championship. Like, that's duh. That is the objective of what you are trying to do. But Indiana built a team. Alabama had a bunch of players. And that's a massive difference between the two. Indiana moves like a well-oiled machine, and Ty Simpson was running for his life. He had to do everything because Alabama can't run the football. Their offensive line is not very good. Defensively, they're not very good. What they did against Oklahoma in round number 1 was more so the fact that John Mateer, the quarterback at Oklahoma, was not very good. So you get this guy in Curt Cignetti, who my favorite thing that took place in the last 24 hours, Max, with Curt Cignetti is the now viral comparison to him and the cartoon character from I believe The Incredibles.
Yeah.
It is because of the Curt Cignetti stare and him just looking at Kalen DeBoer after going for it on a 4th down, and him just looking at Kalen DeBoer in Alabama when he's up 38-3 and there's no emotion. There's no joy on the face of Curt Cignetti until after he wins the football game.
It's Bill Belichick face.
It's a much more likable Bill Belichick face.
Sure.
A much more likable because he is not gifting the world to a 24-year-old.
But that's the he's also not, well, facts. But he's also not like
he's not an a-hole about it.
He's not
Well, he's authentic.
He's authentically grisly.
An a-hole.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick was an a-hole because he could. And he looked down on those of us in the media.
Idiots.
And like, to be fair, there are some stupid people in the media. There might be someone listening that says, yeah, Denton, you're the dumb one. Break the fourth wall there. Cignetti doesn't feel like he's condescending. He feels like he's just a man on a mission. at all times. And last year, it was annoying AF because you would talk such a big game and you would watch Indiana, and it's like, hey, you guys have not played anybody. You got the benefit of a really weak schedule, and when they finally did play Ohio State, they got their doors blown off. When they finally did play Notre Dame in the college football playoff, it really wasn't all that close. It was a 10-point game on the scoreboard, but if you were watching the game, it felt like Notre Dame was in control for the entirety of it, and that Indiana really didn't stand a chance. And to see the way that they are now, where you get a Heisman quarterback, I mean, they're going for an immaculate season. A Heisman quarterback, a conference championship, an undefeated regular season, and then which in turn would just be an undefeated season, period, and a national championship. An immaculate season. You don't see that very often outside of the SEC. LSU did it with Burrow, and that was a hell of a season. Incredible. Alabama did it with Mac Jones when Devontae Smith won the Heisman Trophy. No one could stop them. That was an amazing season. Indiana, in my brain, is not quite at the level of those two teams because, again, like a lot of those Alabama players playing in the NFL at a high level, that LSU trio of Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are collectively top 5 in their position. Like that's a hell of a team, and that doesn't even take into consideration the defense that was on LSU with Patrick Queen, with Stingley and Houston and leading that defense. But Indiana being in a position to complete a immaculate season is insane. I gave you one more Curt Cignetti clip that I'd like you to play here. This is Cignetti after the game continuing the celebration.
Is this getting players' attention, or is there more?
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
yeah.
The getting
right,
players'
cool,
attention.
cool.
Sorry.
Now, it was all on me to get everybody focused, thinking the way we want them to, because it had a lot of smoke blowing up there, for two and a half weeks, right? And then you were dealing with player retention and negotiation and a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff. Guys are winning awards, right? So I thought I had to rock their world and get their attention, and I did my best job to do that.
Indiana is the only team in 2 years that has gotten a bye in the first round of the college football playoff and won a game in round number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia had an opportunity, blew it. Texas Tech had an opportunity, didn't stand a chance.
I'm hearing the bye week might be bad, then.
The bye week is confirmed awful unless you are a special group. And Indiana, that was what Cignetti was getting at. He made sure his players were locked in. It's really easy to get kind of out of yourself when you're going 25 days without a game.
You're in college. It's the holiday season. Finals are wrapping up, even though college players don't really care about finals. But
finals.
The point is, there's a lot going on during this off period, and then you're also prepping to try and win a national championship.
And particularly with Indiana, and they're not the only ones that had this, but they kind of are. Vanderbilt didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
You got a trip to New York in there because Fernando Mendoza got the Heisman Trophy. I love what I see from Curt Cignetti. I did not think I would. I thought after last year I would never like him. He has done what we call in the wrestling business a face turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so glad that Curt Cignetti has completed a sensational face turn. When we get back, we continue the conversation with the college football playoff. Cole Thompson is going to join us. Ben Standing will join us at noon, get his thoughts on the game this weekend and some different scenarios and how they could land a certain draft pick for Washington. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in.
All right. Happy New Year, everybody. We start off with the college football playoff as the quarterfinals wrapped up last night at Miami. They move on after beating Ohio State in a gritty defensive effort on New Year's Eve, 24-14. Oregon, they shut out Texas Tech in the first game of the day yesterday, 23-0. The Indiana Hoosiers put their stamp on Alabama to 38-3 victory over the Tide. Finally, that brings us to an instant classic last night between Ole Miss and Georgia. The Rebs off to a slow start in the first half, but storm back with a 20-point fourth quarter. Trinidad Chambliss leads the Rebs to a 39-34 win, plus the hometown team. The Caps, they fall in a New Year's Day matchup versus the Ottawa Senators. Tom Wilson continues his hot streak since being named to the Olympic Team Canada with his 5th goal in his last 7 periods of action. But the Caps give up one late in the third. Sens win 423. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type of the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on a Friday. We're going to talk with Ben Standing in about 20 minutes. We will try our best to get you somewhat excited for Sunday. I don't know how successful we will be. Not going to be the most fun game in the world. I'll tell you what will be fun, though. You can come hang out with myself and Linnell Willingham. We're going to be at Honor Brewing live from 2 to 4:25, 2 to kickoff, then at halftime, then at postgame as well. It's Honor Brewing. It's a location in Sterling. Come hang out with us. The vibes will be fun. I don't know what the game will be, but the vibes will be fun. What else is fun is my guy Cole Thompson, and he joins us now. Cole's one of the best when it comes to college football. He's on in the mornings in Houston, Morning Drive with Dan and Cole. First of all, Cole, how is the return to the morning treating you? Although, albeit this is a better morning slot than the crazy slot that you and I each worked at one point in our careers, the 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. slot.
Yeah, nothing is better than waking up at 4 a.m. and getting a quick workout in on your way to the gym and then making it over to the studio, having time to prep, and then being done by about 11, meeting up with some marketers afterwards. It's a little hard to do all that when you got to wake up at midnight, do a show until 5 in the morning. You're tired, you're delirious. By the way, then you have a couple meetings they got to go to afterwards. And at some point in between there, you know, you can sleep, but they really tell you, what's the point? It's better on the radio when you sound delusional as all hell.
Speaking of delusional, have you been monitoring any SEC chat boards today?
Oh, good God. Oh, boy. And I mean, it's been so wonderful to hear how everybody wants to talk about the demise of the SEC and how quite literally it's now becoming the most overrated conference in college football, which to some consideration that I can't push back. I also can because of I think that you also look at who's available in the college football playoff because Ohio State isn't sitting there and Michigan's not sitting there and Penn State's not sitting there and Clemson's not sitting there and Alabama's not sitting there. So it's like it's more of just a common ground in general. But be honest for a second. If I would have told you that Ole Miss, Miami, Oregon, and Indiana were the 4 teams standing in the pathway of winning a national title, a first for all these programs at least since the 1990s, your initial thought would probably have been, okay, that doesn't make any sense. What happened along the way? And then I throw in another curveball and say, you know that coach Lane Kiffin? Well, he's not the one leading the charge either, but they won a game about 60 miles away from where he's actually going to be coaching next year because he got Brian Kelly fired.
If you would have just given me those 4 teams, Cole, and said these are the 4 teams, I would have thought that you had mistakenly grabbed a program for a wrestling quad meet. And it was just those 4 wrestling teams that converged on a weekend. I would have not anticipated. I could have maybe individually said, oh, you know, like Oregon's been my national champion. So them being here, understood. Indiana being here, understood. I didn't have Miami and Ole Miss, especially without Lane Kiffin being in this position. And that's kind of where I want to start. I thought Golding last night was sensational, and I kind of think he outcoached Kirby Smart in the fourth quarter of the game last night.
There were definitely moments throughout that game. I thought that he made some of the best second half adjustments when it came to that defense. You know, there were moments that you were watching as Gunnar Stockton was basically getting in a car wreck every single other play, but he was still able to do damage. Short completions, trusting his legs. They gained a little bit of momentum. They went up big. They went up by 11 points going into halftime. And I thought that Pete Golding did a really good job of making sure we're not going to let this team beat us with the ground and pound attack. If they're going to want to win, they're going to have to test our cornerbacks. And they started sending great blitzes. William Eccles had himself a day. Surtain Perkins on 4th down with that strip sack really was probably the play of the night to where momentum shifted all the way back in favor of Ole Miss. But if you want to talk about a guy who deserves all the flowers in the world and probably has earned himself millions of dollars in one way, shape, or form, it's straight out shameless. I mean, the game was won because of what you have with number 6, who I might also throw in there. He signed with Ole Miss back in April as a Wildcat quarterback because of his mobility at Division II Ferris State. And that dude is now 4 quarters away from playing in the national championship. He is far and away, and I remember saying this after the first matchup against Georgia back in October, he is going to be the X factor in every single game. You tell me his stat line, I will tell you if Ole Miss wins or not. And Kid balled out. Every single throw was better than the last one. His attention to detail with footwork and mechanics on being able to maneuver outside, understanding pocket awareness, allowed him to build those explosive plays. And then you throw in Kewan Lacey. He only rushed for 99 yards, but then he had 4 catches for 22 yards. And 2 of the biggest catches of the night on 2nd and 3rd down when Georgia's blitz went all out and pushed Chambliss near the back of the end zone. He was in the right place at the right time to continue to make plays. And then the big touch downfield of Dejon Stribling to set up a Canero 47-yard field goal, who, by the way, Canero going into this game had made a kick over 55 yards. He made 2 at 56 and 57. It was an all world-class performance of mentality in the moment that needed to stand tall. And Georgia had a good game plan. I don't want to take anything away from Georgia. There were a couple of missed calls on both sides. The egregious face mask call on Kewan Lacey that nearly cost Ole Miss the game, I thought was really evident. But they didn't have a perfect plan. And Ole Miss did. And Ole Miss did the little things in the second half over a span of 30 minutes that now has them in the running for a college football playoff national championship. And how funny was it? At 9:02 last night, right before halftime, Lane Kiffin tweets out how it's so good to be at LSU. And in that moment, Ole Miss goes on a 21-3 run. Now they are 4 quarters away from playing at a national title.
Yep, Lane Kiffin gets Kim Mulkey's hand. Ole Miss gets Miami to play for a national championship. What was your other big takeaway from just this round number 2 with only seeing now one team that has had a bye able to win a game in round number 2?
So 2 things. Number 1, I think that it's abundantly clear that there is going to be more parity in the world of college football than ever before. And that's not to say that we aren't going to see Indiana come right back into the conversation of being a front runner, or that we won't see Georgia back here next season. But in the world of NIL and with the transfer portal having 0 regulations, I mean, you could just hop in every single season and go to the highest bidder. You're going to watch teams that are able to spend money, put themselves in a position to where you will get the Oklahoma State, you will get the South Carolina, you will get the Rutgers every once in a while. And if they can sustain that success, well, then teams like Alabama and Georgia and Michigan and USC, they'll have solid years, and there'll be years where, yeah, they definitely are 10-2, they're 11-1, they go into the playoff, but they end up kind of being underwhelming. And then the next few years, they're right back at 9-3. And maybe that's a good thing for the sport, because people get tired of seeing the Georgia versus the Ohio State matchup or the Michigan versus the Texas matchup. And they still will happen, but you're also going to get more games of Oregon versus a BYU, a Ole Miss versus a Michigan State. Like, those will become new norms, and that's good because it creates opportunity to where it's not just these 8 or 9 teams that every single year we're gunning to go see win a national championship. The second thing is, I mean, number 1, they're going to expand the playoff. Now's the perfect time, because if you're watching this team still 1-7 after missing the first round, and that's just horrendous. If you go a step further, they're being outscored 51-3 in those span of games in the first quarter. So it is a quite literal sloppy performance from every team that gets those 28 days off. But to take it a step further, they got to have these games at home. They got to be home playoff games, because I remember watching yesterday the Orange Bowl, and Texas Tech, a team that defied expectations. Cody Campbell's money came on, funneling in oil rigs to get 5-star players. And it was dead at halftime. And it wasn't because of the atmosphere was bad. It was because nobody made the trip down there. And so the meaning of what the Orange Bowl was when you and I were growing up is it was a prestige honor to go play in that matchup and have your fan base come out in droves. And unfortunately for a team like Oregon, it's just, cool, we won the Orange Bowl. Now we got to go down to Atlanta and win the Peach Bowl. And then afterwards, we got to win the national championship. If you have those games at home, and it's the home higher seed playoff matchups, not only will it do great for revenue, not only will it do great for merchandising, not only will every town benefit because of lodging purposes and extracurricular services, and then you throw in, local shops around there getting a big buck. But this is now an area where you're seeing that there is more value of having these home playoff games than going to these neutral site fields where, number 1, nobody wants to travel on down from Eugene, Oregon when they're too busy thinking about winning for the national championship. And number 2, it ends up giving a major advantage, I think, to teams that were playing well to close out the year. I mean, like Ole Miss and Oregon are 2 teams that got the benefit of the doubt playing JMU and Tulane to begin the playoff. They also got 4 quarters to figure out what was right about their team and what needed change. And both things were corrected in routes to wins over Texas Tech and Georgia.
What was more surprising to you, Alabama losing the way that they did or Texas Tech losing the way that they did?
Alabama losing the way they did, far and away. And I thought that there was a scenario where Alabama was going to find a way to win. In fact, I picked Alabama to win. I'll just be completely honest. I have a lot of DMs right now just telling me things that if I want to go stay on the AFCC regulations, I'm going to keep to myself. But, I thought that Alabama was a one-dimensional team all year, but they found some offensive identity 2 weeks ago when they were down 17-0 to Oklahoma to then proceed to win 34-7 in the second half. But they really were struggling in all areas of the game. And what was so funny, Denton, is, as an Alabama grad, I remember the Saban days. I remember the Saban attitude. I remember what to expect when you take the field. And there was a team in crimson on the field that looked like Alabama. It just was Indiana. They were better in the trenches. They were better when it came to physicality. They could run the football with two different backs. They were better at taking pursuit angles and tackling. They were able to force more turnovers. They did a good job at sending blitzes. They were in the right place at the right time to set up special team scenarios. They didn't miss when they had their opportunity to make a big time play, and their quarterback understood pocket awareness better than the other quarterback in Ty Simpson. And so I think it was a very humbling moment for Alabama because you started off the year looking as dreadful as you could against Florida State. And then you ended the year looking as dreadful as you could against an Indiana squad. And people aren't going to look back and say, well, you beat Georgia and you had the most wins against top 25 teams and you rattled off a victory in the playoff against Oklahoma that had a championship caliber defense. They're going to remember Kalen DeBoer in year 2 for not getting the job done on the road against Florida State, not getting the job done on the road against Indiana. And both of those are now going to put him on a position where I don't think he should be on the hot seat, but I can tell you what, Denton, the expectation is not 9-3 or 10-2 down in Tuscaloosa. 8-4 gets you fired. And now moving to a 9-game conference schedule, you are going to see more parity in this league, but you're going to see more 8-4 losses to where that's inexcusable. And the expectation for the next coach that comes on in there may make or break the future of what this league looks like.
Yeah, it does feel like the next year is going to be make or break for DeBoer.
And it's crazy to say that, but the bottom line is that there's an expectation and a criteria. And it's not he's replacing Nick Saban thing. I get that. It's Nick Saban's teams, even in losses, made it competitive because of the way that they went through practice, the way they went through reps, and the way that they were able to deliver on Saturdays. Then they were soft. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Secondary was pitiful yesterday in man coverage. They played a lot of off-ball stuff. The offensive line was dreadful. I mean, it's already a weird sentence to say, hey, Kirk Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers are 8 quarters away from winning a national championship. It's an even weirder sentence to say Indiana out-bullied, out-mastered, out-physicaled, and outworked Alabama in football for 4 quarters. And that was the better team. I don't think anybody in the history of the world of college football ever thought those exact words would be uttered in some type of sentence, even when Cignetti got hired from JMU.
All right, Cole, get you out of here on this. Who wins? Who wins it all? Who's the one hoisting the trophy at the end?
So I had Georgia winning the national championship, and I had them against Oregon. I'll tell you what, man, it's really hard to say that the winner of the Miami Ole Miss game is not going to win the whole dang thing. But at the same time, I'll just keep a spade. I think that's going to be Indiana. Indiana looks like the most complete team in college football. They do everything at a great level, and that's sometimes better than being elite at one trait. I'd much rather have 6 or 7 things that I'm almost elite at than one trait that I'm super good at, and there's an Achilles heel on the other side. I just think Kirk Cignetti's got the team rolling at the right time. I'm going to take the Hoosiers to win it all.
God, that would be so sensational if he does that in a 2-year span at Indiana, of all places. Cole, you're the best. Hope you find some time to get some sleep today. Appreciate it as always, my friend.
Never have, never will. Talk to you later, Denton.
That is Cole Thompson. He's on in Houston in the mornings, and he covers college football as a part of SEC Unfiltered. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. I love talking college football with him. I think he does a really good job. He's definitely an SEC guy, but I feel like he does look at it from a little bit more of a broad perspective. Max, are you back in Indiana to win this whole thing?
They feel the most dominant at this point. Like they're
Can
for
we
sure
call
the team
them
to
a
beat.
team of destiny? Like it feels like people are calling Miami teams the team of destiny and Ole Miss the team of destiny. but it does feel like Indiana fits the mold the way that they are just annihilating everybody.
Yeah, dominating every
Sometimes,
single facet.
I guess Team of Destiny is more for like the underdog who we didn't think was going to do it. And Indiana doesn't fit that mold because they were the only unbeaten team in college football. But it does start to feel like that they are just destined to win the national championship. I hope Oregon beats them because I have money on Oregon. But it does feel like it's Indiana. All right, when we get back, Ben Standing is going to join us. Dan Quinn is going to talk in about 20 minutes as well. You'll hear his press availability right here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dent Day sitting in. Is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Dent Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. You hear that music, it's time to connect with our guy, Ben Standig. He joins us live from Ashburn. Dan Quinn's going to talk here in like 10 minutes. You'll hear that as well. Ben, you've covered a lot of games for the Commanders over the years. I can't imagine this one ranks very high in terms of excitement for you this weekend.
No, it's so little. In fact, I want to go back to you mentioned the theme music. I don't know if Max or I ever told you, but like with Max producing, so this is like you've been doing it for a long time. He says one day, "Why are we playing this Elton John song?" And Max is like, "Well, because Denton, came up with this for Ben, the last name." He's like, "Oh, I never knew that." I was like, "Dude, it's been the same song for years."
It's been. I literally did it for 2 years. And and Sheehan never asked me about it. A guy that would routinely comment on the music coming back, and he just never made the connection.
Exactly. Yes, the game itself could not. Look, obviously we'll all find certain levels of interest. Is this a game where Ben Sinnott gets more involved, and how does Johnny Newton build off of what he did a week ago, or things along those lines? But yes, in terms of even from the result standpoint, sure, there's a world where Washington could move up in the draft order if they were to lose and a combination of other teams in front of them were to win. But even there, they can't be any worse than where they are now at 7. So, even if they win, it's not like, all right, it's not like they're going to move all the way back to 12 or something. So, yeah, there's not a ton here. But, as people have often pointed out, in 2 months when we're all going, man, I miss football right now. We'll be like, oh, you know what? I would take it. And look, last week, not many expectations. Dallas was playing most of its guys. It was an entertaining game, so we can root for that, hopefully.
Who's going to be playing quarterback for the Commanders? Not Mariota, right?
No, I'm going to assume it's Josh Johnson. There's been no indication that it would be Sam Hartman, and I don't imagine.
Is Sam Hartman that bad? Do they really not like him that much?
It's all relative, right? Not everybody who plays, who's like on a roster as a quarterback is ready to go right then. Some guys require multiple years of, practicing, getting prepped by the staff, whatever it is. So no, obviously, based on what we know, they aren't viewing Sam Hartman as like, let's just say Mariota sign somewhere else next year. There's no indication that Hartman would be in the mix to be the backup, which I do feel is a little bit of a misfire here in terms of having two guys in Johnson and Hartman, neither of whom are going to be likely to be the number 2 or even number 3 necessarily again, but certainly not number 2. And I always think that you need to constantly have a pipeline of guys there. But yeah, no, I don't imagine that Hartman is somebody who's necessarily in their long-term plans, but at the same time, he's been here. He does know the system. Obviously, we know he's got a bit of a bromance with Jaden Daniels, and if they think he's good for the room, there's some argument to that, especially if your third quarterback is somebody that you're like, okay, we feel pretty good about this person, both from like an upside perspective or at least from a immediate perspective.
On the defensive side, Bobby Wagner is 5 tackles away from 2,000 tackles. Do you think once he gets that mark that he comes off the field and it is the Jordan McGee show at middle linebacker?
Again, there's been like no indication that that's going to happen. He's missed 7 snaps all year. I know that Bobby Wagner takes a lot of pride in what he does, and keeps himself in great shape. And I've asked Dan Quinn a bunch of times. It was asked of him again this week. Like, you can tell me all about Jordan McGee, how he practices and he's getting reps and things like that, but how do you know about how he handles real-time action with the green dot, calling the signals or relaying the signals if he doesn't do it? I don't know that even like a 1/2 is going to make any difference at this point. You know what I mean? So right. I don't know that it even, I won't say it doesn't make sense, but I don't want to like get overly worked up, because whatever that happens in that sequence, I don't really, how much weight could you really put on it? So my guess would be Wagner plays it out, but certainly McGee plays at least now. He has, once the defensive end injuries happened, they went forward to that 4-3. So he's played a bunch, and we see the speed and all that. So, hopefully that gives him at least a sign of what he could do.
So you had mentioned earlier that maybe Johnny Newton could put together a second really strong performance. The last time we saw him on the field, I do think he played one of his better games certainly this season, maybe of his young career. Are they loving what they're seeing from him now in this like extended role now that Eddie Goldman's not there?
Well, I mean, look, certainly, how could you not like what we saw last week? I mean, I think the big key last week was Deron Payne didn't play, so that just opened up all those reps and snaps next to Javon Kinlaw, and Newton inherited that. I think going forward, I think the question is, how close is he to being a guy that can play all three downs? Now, clearly, we have seen the pass rush. I'm not saying he's Aaron Donald or whatever, but we've seen the guy who can get after it. Not even John Allen necessarily at this point, but the run side is, I think, the question. He's a lighter for defensive tackles. He's probably about 25, 30 pounds lighter than Deron Payne or Eddie Goldman, according to the roster measurables that we see. And based on the usage over the course of the year, it just doesn't feel like they are completely comfortable with him in that role. So to me, that's the huge question. But at least what we saw in this last game, we have seen flashes, but certainly in this last game, was what the upside is. And that, we've talked collectively all the last, several weeks about, hey, what's up with these two draft classes under Adam Peters? Because other than Jaden Daniels, I don't know what is really there. It's not that Newton is now all of a sudden, okay, he's locked in as a starter, but now you can be like, okay, I get what's going on here. I see the potential. I see the upside. So that's a good thing. And now I think it's just a matter of how comfortable they're going to feel with him in the run game.
So Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill is, it looks like he's going to be back in action. I loved what I saw from him against Dallas. How important is it that he's going to get to go this week?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we can, I've been doing this series on my Substack, looking at the 2026 roster over every 4 weeks through the prism of what's happening here. And part of it is to show, okay, here's where, they've had more guys who've now, you can fill in the blanks in terms of the lineup next year versus not. And running back, look, even with Austin Eckler, I don't think any of us were thinking, wow, they definitely have a running back individual or even committee necessarily going forward. But considering the amount of other issues on this roster right now, wide receiver, they need more speed. Who's replacing Zach Ertz, the pass rush, cornerbacks, we can keep going. I think the running back room might actually be one of those, you're like, you know what, we can get by with this. I mean, they have been a productive run team all year. Bill and Chris Rodriguez, I don't know if necessarily they're an ideal 1-2 punch because neither one has shown a ton in the passing game, but nonetheless, they have both run effectively. They're different types of guys. So I think to me, this is a bigger deal. And for Bill in particular, he's got, if he can show more improvement as a pass, not just a pass catcher, but pass blocker, I think that goes a long way towards the confidence that the staff would have in him. And like Jeremy McNichols, who's a free agent, could easily return. But I would venture to guess to say in an ideal world, his snaps go down a little bit, but that's also dependent on do they have somebody they feel comfortable with protecting Jaden Daniels, and obviously that's kind of a big deal.
That series that you're doing at the end of the year is going to be fascinating to go back and reflect on a 4 week by 4 week basis how much the roster theoretically is changing as you look to 2026, because man, it seems like there's going to be a lot of holes based off of what they currently have.
No doubt. I mean, not even just from the standpoint of they have all these free agents. It's like, okay, well, even if you could bring all the free agents back, does that solve your problem? You're still having a lot of questions. I think for me, like, the lack of speed on the roster has been evident. When you have the oldest roster in the league, that kind of comes with the territory. But also, as much as we've all talked about injuries this year, no doubt injuries were a disaster, especially when it's happening to, your starting quarterback and your best offensive weapon and your top pass rusher. But it really, to me, the real story was that it just exposed the lack of depth. I mean, and this comes from, when you have to build up the entire roster because of years of, whatever, bad drafts and all that stuff. And that's the huge question. I mean, even if we say, hey, they go out and get, I'm just making these names up, they go out and get a Trey Hendrickson, or, I know people want Brandon Ayuk or whatever. Okay, but that's cool. But like, what about the backups too, like all over the place? That because injuries happen, I mean, whether it's a ton like this year, even a few like last year, what's your depth and where is it going forward? So that to me is a huge deal. How do they improve their depth? on top of the overall starting talent. In terms of holes, that's why they have quite a bit.
All right, who wins this weekend? Is Washington drafting 6th or 7th?
Oh my, who wins this weekend? I don't know. People who have other plans. I don't know. Look, I think this will be in terms of the depth notion. Like unless I've missed it, you can tell me if we have. I don't think we know exactly for Philly who's in or out. But if we assume that no Jalen Hurts, no Saquon Barkley, no AJ Brown, and some guys on defense, Philly is a team that has built up their roster over the years that has good depth. They seem to really like Tanner McKee, their backup quarterback. So. I'm gonna say Philly wins is 20-17, but sure, whatever you want to tell me is the result, I will happily believe you.
Ben, appreciate it. I know you got to go catch Dan Quinn. We appreciate the time, and hopefully the game is at least somewhat entertaining.
Hey, look, last week's surprises. We'll hope for the best, and look at the end of the game. The off season's officially going, and that I think we've all been kind of waiting for this. It's a fascinating off season, like you said, and going to start by Sunday night, basically.
That is Ben Standig. You can hear him on his podcast, Last Man Standing. If you're not subscribed to his Substack, be sure to go and do that. He joins us every Monday and Friday on the Kevin Sheehan Show. So we will go out to Ashburn in a couple of minutes so you can hear Dan Quinn. I have been trying to manufacture excitement for this game, and I think I have run out of the midnight oil. I think I'm done. The cup is empty. I like it when my cup is overflowing. My cup is currently empty.
I mean, there's only so much you can say to get people juiced up about a game where Josh Johnson versus Tanner McKee is the headline.
Yeah, that is not marquee.
No,
not one bit. No. And I know
when,
they had to schedule it a certain way because the NFL loves to do this bit where they have teams playing at the same time if they're in different games, so you can't scoreboard watch for specific scenarios that are going to take place. But let me tell you, this game being at 4:25 blows. I mean, this
makes no sense.
This is like a 1 p.m. game. It's written all over it, and instead, they're going to make us wait to watch the potential of Josh Johnson. I would assume that Dan Quinn would make it official. Who is going to start at quarterback when he gets to the podium, which you'll hear shortly. But putting this game at 4:25, because here are the games that are taking place in that window that have real legitimate stakes for the postseason. Are you ready? Are you sitting down? None. 0. There are no games that are being played at 1 o'clock that have significant stakes for the postseason. Maybe Philadelphia has a seeding situation.
There's really
but they're locked in.
There's really only one game with any stakes tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, because tomorrow's Saturday. There are 2 games with stakes on Saturday.
2 games with stakes on Saturday, 1 game with stakes on Sunday, which is Sunday Night Football, Ravens and Steelers.
Okay, 2. Well, yeah, all right, fine. We can bump it up because what? Are the Chargers and Broncos playing for anything at this point, or is that just seeding?
That's just seeding. Denver wins the AFC West.
Okay, then yeah, no.
So, there's literally nothing going on. Why they did not put Washington and Philadelphia in the 1 o'clock slate to go along with Saints Falcons. It's a game that's on their level. Browns Bengals. That's a game that's on their level.
They needed to fill up the East Coast market with a matchup.
Cowboys Giants. I mean, that really is. They just had to fill out the East Coast matchup because they didn't want to put the Jets on national television when the Jets play the Bills. I mean, really, in the 1 o'clock window, you're going to be paying attention to the Titans and the Giants to see if one of them wins and then how that impacts the draft positioning. The Raiders play the Chiefs. The Raiders at 2-14, the Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes. Maybe there's a scenario where the Raiders win that game and then they can lose the first overall pick if the Giants lose to the Cowboys. And then you got to factor in all this strength of schedule stuff. So you have to wait for literally every single game to end before you actually know the draft picks, because the strength of schedule thing is so it's such a weird bit. I understand it because you want to have a team that played a worse schedule that also sucks to have a better pick, but there's so much math that's involved in that. And I
Too much for you,
don't
boy.
like math. At this stage of the season where I'm just kind of ready for the season to be over, throwing math into my face now is not a good look. Thankfully, we have people on Twitter that do it for us, and I love those people very much. All right, when we get back, we'll go out to Ashburn. You will hear Dan Quinn from the podium. He'll give us his final thoughts prior to the game on Sunday. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dende sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
Several
Commanders, Eagles this weekend. Get excited. Woo! Yay! Hooray! If you want a good vibe, you can come hang out with myself, Linnell Willingham, Honor Brewing in Sterling. We'll be out there at 2 p.m. going for the entirety of the game, pregame 2 to 4:25. We'll be live at halftime. We'll be live post-game as well. They got great food and drink specials. It's an overall nice place to hang out and watch a game. And they'll have other games on too if you are more interested in other games, which might also be necessary. Let's head out to Ashburn. Dan Quinn speaking. He's at the podium for the final time prior to this weekend's matchup.
Several weeks with him getting more of a chance.
Yeah, he has. I guess I felt some of it in practice, John. You know, the speed, the urgency. What I've been pleased with also his ability out in space, you know, not just the catching, but the blocking. I've always felt his urgency, but yeah, there is some more opportunities for him. You know, with the early space, it just wasn't enough, you know, with Zach and with John. So I clearly see him being one to take advantage of it.
You see some other young guys like who have maybe ascended over the last several weeks. And you say like going forward, 2026 next season, that you see maybe like taking that big leap. I mean, have they shown you enough to feel like they can make that leap?
Yeah, I certainly feel that way. I know I keep lumping Trey into that, and he's not, but he's still new to me. And so I feel him that way. I feel Bill Krosky-Merritt into that space. On the defensive side, I think I've spoken about Jordan into that spot, Johnny into that spot. So those are a few that come to mind right off the bat.
I know there's still a game left, but have you thought more about what you want to do at defensive coordinator next season? And are you at a place where you know yet?
You know, honestly, I'm just trying to stay in the pocket of where I'm at today, and I'm not, you know, in the reflective space. I'm kind of still in the go for it space with the guys. So I recognize the question, but I guess owe to this crew to just, you know, be as locked in present as I can for them. That's really important to me.
Hey, Coach, as you prepare for that last game of the season and you look back, was it anything this season that you maybe didn't see that you wanted to see?
Yeah, I think, you know, two of the things the first thing I would say, Donna, that jumps out is just the turnover margin. I don't see enough takeaways. I don't see enough of us forcing fumbles, hunting the ball, creating, you know, field position changes, drives that change. And that's, I would say, the top of the pile for me.
Drake got a chance to see him a little bit the other week. What have you seen from him, you know, being out there?
Yeah, coming off a knee injury, you want to see how explosive, you know, can a guy return to that spot. And so for me, seeing his movement, seeing, you know, his get off, those are the things that I'm like watching for to say, okay, is there a player to develop here with him to go? So I like the bend, the movement. Part of him is my evaluations from practice too, just to see it. Can he come? Is he fully back? Is he making those turns? And so seeing some of that, that's been a big deal for me, and he'll get some more time with that Sunday.
Hey, Coach, throughout the season, you've mentioned the phrase hyper-focus and wanting to see that. Can you share some examples of that? So I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you mean by that.
I think one would be, you know, it's a 2-minute situation to say, you know, like all the training, it kicks in just for this moment. In those spots, you react quickly and you go. And so I think there's an elevated urgency to your mindset, your belief, and like, yeah, we want that all the time, but there are times where it's like, this is the play, this is the moment, this is the route. And so those are generally the moments that I'm looking for. It could be literally at any position of, hey, on this kick, on this field goal block, you know, like that special emphasis that kind of rises you up even a little bit further.
And earlier in the season, I think we talked a bit about the miscommunications on defense. So as the season continued to go on, did you see any improvement there? Kind of likes, don't like it so much that you saw from that?
Improvements, yes. To the standard that say I was pleased with, no. But like from an individual spot, I was like just talking about practice this week, and with Will Harris, this is what I'm specifically looking for you from the communication, and to see him go through and nail that on a man-to-man or a certain technique as we're getting ready for this game. I am looking for that. And it's something that you always want to chase, even for the player that's smart, that knows his assignment. Can he, you know, help multiply by talking ahead and being in that spot? And so that's what I try to reinforce a lot too.
Dan, indulge me just a little bit on a bigger picture kind of question. I asked the same thing of Cliff yesterday with regards to the offense. Obviously, he's had success with it, college, pros. You guys had last year as well, but he's also almost nobody else in the league is running the no huddle and hurry up as much as you guys are.
Right.
Having been around it for 2 seasons now and going through this season, what is your kind of thoughts about the system and how confident are you that this is still the way to go forward?
Yeah, I'll be glad to hit on all spaces of it. There's things that I like about when you're in no huddle and doing it more than most, because it does add a challenge on the preparation side, like from my perspective from a defense. So for sure, there's elements that, okay, that's good, that's not. I would say you want to make sure you always are emphasizing the things that you can do best. And so do they tie together, the runs, the passes? And I think that's something that we'll continue to look at. But it's all about like the player also, and how do they function best and how does the team function best? And so with Jaden being comfortable into that space, not everybody, works in his space, but he and Marcus are certainly confident, familiar with that. And so you've probably seen over, the last game where it wasn't quite the same in that space with Josh. So I think part of that, Ben, is, how do we utilize the players? How do they function best?
Sort of along the same lines, but for the other side of the ball, obviously you made the change to take over play calling, and you'll have those questions to deal with, as Nikki asked you. But in terms of yourself, as you're going through it, do you at any point this season think, is this still the right way to go? You've adjusted over the course of your career, but what gives you the confidence that what the schematically wise, what you're doing is still the way to go forward?
Yeah, for sure. The like a scheme wise, I think you really want to look first into, like, even before you get into that, like where you at in your tackling, where you at on your ball hawking. And if you have the ability to do that, then I would say the scheme piece is in there. And I haven't been pleased with those two topics even before the scheme, Ben, to be honest. And so continuity does play a factor into that when you're changing in and out. Like, obviously that's a big deal. How do you feature the players with the personnel and those things? So I think one of the fun parts about the NFL is, like, man, you constantly adjust and you tweak it. And so I've done it for a number of years doing that. What was once good when we played so much zone, we needed to tighten things up. Then when you play certain things now, okay, how do you adjust to these formations and that? So it's kind of like a constant evolving space. What we may see, this year or last year on defense may, evolve into some other things. I do think versatility matters with players. Can he be off the ball? Can he be on? Can he blitz? Can you have guys that can do more than one role? Ben, if you have that, I think that can help. Now, some guys are just, like rare position people, like the giant nose tackle that, on early downs, there's a role for that player. But I think I'm talking more specifically on the passing game. Can a nickel who could be a safety, do different jobs? I think that leans into different looks. How do you pressure? And the more you can do that, I think the better in any scheme.
Coach,
good afternoon.
Yesterday, Bobby gave a lot of credit to having guys like Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Mike Bennett, KJ Wright with him and around him early on as a linebacker to allow him to grow into the quarterback of the defense. Given your experience with him, obviously, how important was that to his development in your recollection?
Yeah, I think that speaks to some of his humility too. He was very much in the middle of all of this communication. We had some wild guys that was a lot of fun to coach, and that type of effort, like, you also needed somebody who could, see through the chaos a little bit. And it's one of the things I admire about Bobby, like his steadiness in all scenarios and all situations. So knowing your role and how to play that role at a really high level, I think that was, for me, kind of the epitome of that. If you could have known what Cam Chancellor and Earl were like as safeties, they looked different. They played in a different style, but they both were safeties. But what they played and how they played it, I think, was at an elite level. And Bobby and KJ Wright, also at linebacker, had unique traits of what they did. KJ was somebody that guarded the tight end at like a really, really high level. He was super long. So I think, when, like, speaking to Ben's, when you find somebody that has a role that can do something really unique, that's a big part of it. But I think when you get people together and they're continue to push one another for like high standards, even higher, then that's a really cool thing. But they kind of, I would say, all came up together in some way.
And kind of transitioning that experience to Jordan McGee's development, obviously the snap counts have gone up, which is a signal you guys are trusting him more and more. how important is it for a guy like him to have that physical part of the game really kind of clicking and humming before you necessarily pile more onto his plate from a strategic standpoint?
Yeah, and I would probably have said we would have, if he had stayed all the way healthy in 2024, maybe we would have played more of that package as well. Sometimes, like right now, I want to find ways to get him on the field, like the running, the hitting, the physicality, the speed. I see that. And so sometimes you've seen us play a base defense against 3 wides. It's not, because we think we can guard it better, but it's a chance for him to get more snaps and more playing time. So he's earned it, but it was really more by me of saying, there's a guy we need to just find ways to, get him around the ball. And the playing experience helps. You're in the fight, you're going. The package, although it's not super extensive, he's making his impact felt.
Kind of a broader question about Cliff now
This
having
is Broad Question Friday. Like
Broad
I will
Question
say,
Friday.
I'm not in a big reflective mode, guys. Like as much as I know you guys can be, like just understand, man. Like I'm still in the game plan mode too. So please understand that.
Well, this is kind of pertinent
Yeah,
to this
but I
week.
heard Nikki Butt earlier. But go ahead. I'm just messing with you, Tom.
Cliff has had to work with so many different quarterbacks and guys coming in and out. And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how he has handled that and adapted with that.
Yeah, and receivers too. And I think those 2 positions often, have so much timing, communication to go through it. And I think like Bobby Ingram and Andre and, being in concert with that, doing the extra before, doing the extra after to make sure you can, get onto the same page. And I think like an example would be, Burks of coming in, getting healthy. How do we find him the reps? How do we get some timing where you can't just run, 50 reps every day of it? So it's a challenge, but that's sometimes what it calls for. In his defense of people to get together, to find spaces, I really admire like the early sessions, the late sessions by all of those guys to find their way.
On the same note, obviously you never want to see injuries happen, but as a result of those, you're seeing, a ton of guys play this year that probably otherwise wouldn't have seen as much playing time. Is it valuable to kind of get that look at those guys to evaluate the quality of your depth moving forward?
Yeah, that I think falls under the silver lining when you're going through a tough space. And certainly, like we're not going to look back to say, well, that was really worthwhile, but there's things to gain. And even when we're going through this, as hard as it is, I don't want to waste these things that we're going to learn that will pay it forward. And part of that is learning about other players and what they can do, what, they could become, what that could look like. And you do sometimes need to see it in the competitive environment in the game of what that can be. We try to make the practices as competitive as you can, but there is something different on the game day. You're inside those white lines and like execution, the ability to navigate and adjust, like that's a really big deal. And so there are numbers of examples of that. Like I still wish we could have gotten more on some, others that into that space, but there's been quite a few, and all of them matter and they count. Sure.
So going back to Cliff's offense, you talk about
Why don't we just make it like John's last question, and we can have that like our final one, like on like Fridays, like talks with Maury or something. Yeah, go ahead. Friday with John.
Cliff's offense, you talk about being unique. And you always hear coaches talk about you get good what you practice against. What's the challenge if you're having a unique offense to get your defense prepared? You think throughout camp and with all the motion sometimes you guys face. What's that challenge? How do you then kind of combat that to make sure that the defense is also prepared?
Yeah, I think a byproduct of going fast. I think the conditioning of your team is usually a little higher, and I wouldn't have known that, prior to last season. But when you play quicker on the ball, you just think of it just from an offensive standpoint, where these guys are running and running and running. But I think there's an element to that, John, that goes on the defensive side. It does hit on the conditioning. It does hit on the communication quickly. So I think there's, balance to it. But, going through camp, you're trying to get your whole team ready. But I would say it does lean into, I think that's one of the byproducts of that I think is a good thing. All right. We'll see you guys up there.
That is Dan Quinn live from the podium. So officially, it'll be Josh Johnson on Sunday against Philadelphia. No Laramie Tunsil no Marcus Mariota, but most everybody else is going to be good to go. So we're going to see Terry out there. Not that we thought we wouldn't, but I don't know. When Philadelphia gets all their guys out there, I thought maybe there would be another couple of people, although I think we talked about this on Wednesday. They just don't have anybody at wide receiver. So, like, they need to put the starters out there. They literally cannot afford no Terry and no Debo. So you get Washington, you get Philadelphia. There's something I'm curious about. We talked about it on Wednesday. I haven't been given much more information, but it could play a factor in what goes down on Sunday. I'll share that with you when we get back. Plus, we'll go around the NFL and look at some of the big-time matchups that have real stakes in them. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
All right. Happy New Year, everybody. We start off with college football playoff as the quarterfinals wrapped up last night. Miami, they move on New Year's Eve after defeating Ohio State in a gritty defensive effort, 24-14. And then on New Year's Day, Oregon shuts out Texas Tech 23-0. Indiana Hoosiers put their stamp on Alabama in a 38-3 victory over the Tide, finally bringing us to an instant classic last night between Ole Miss and Georgia. The Rebs off to a slow start in the first half, but they storm back with a 20-point fourth quarter. Trinidad Chambliss leads the Rebs to a 39-34 win. Plus, the hometown team, the Caps, they fall in a New Year's Day matchup versus the Ottawa Senators. Tom Wilson continues his hot streak since being named to Olympic Team Canada with his 5th goal in the last 7 periods of action. But the Caps give up one late in the third, and the Sens take it 4-3. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command in Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us. Turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Commanders Eagles 425 kick this weekend. I'm interested in one thing only. The results of the game does not really matter. The worst Washington can land in the draft is 7, win or lose. And they're likely going to be 7 regardless because of strength of schedule. If they lose, it boosts Philadelphia's strength of schedule. And then, Cleveland could lose too, and their strength of schedule would be worse than Washington's strength of schedule, which would then make them have the 6th overall pick and Washington the 7th overall pick. I want to know what happens when they see each other after 2 weeks. Because at the end of the last performance and the last rendezvous between these two teams, there was a kerfuffle. Some fisticuffs were thrown. Some players were thrown out. Everyone got to the podium and said, we will see them again in 2 weeks. Now Philadelphia is resting their starters. I don't think that's an accident, by the way. I think there might be a little bit of, hey, they said they were going to do something in 2 weeks. We got to make sure that our guys are not on the field. Not to suggest that they were going to go all Sean Payton in New Orleans and start taking out players. But, I do
why
think,
not?
I do think that could be why they're not. Philadelphia is not playing some of their guys. I do wonder if that statement still rings true or if that was just everybody in the heat of the moment. We talked about it on Wednesday. What does that even mean? Like, what is going to happen again in 2 weeks? Your team is not very good. That literally only meant, hey, we're going to fight you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, that is the only thing.
Be ready. Square up.
Like, square up. Get the gloves ready. I know the coaches are thinking, well, we're still going to go out there and compete, and we're going to be hard, and we're going to beat them and all of these things. But as an outsider, knowing that the team is not very good, that was not going to be the case. That literally just felt like, hey, we're going to fight you in 2 weeks. And now Philadelphia is resting all of its starters. I don't want to see a fight just to see a fight. I can watch UFC. I can watch pro wrestling. I know it's not the same thing, but still, like, I can find other ways to see violence.
Of course.
I only wanted the fight element of it if it was justified. I don't want to beat up on backups. You know what I mean?
It'd be uncouth.
It would be uncouth. It would be off-kiltered a little bit. Like if they suplex Tanner McGee in the thrill of a game and it's like a perfect belly-to-back suplex, like on a sack, I'm into it. But I don't really care enough about Tanner McGee to be like, hey, they should fight him because someone went for 2 weeks ago. With that said, Sirianni's a dope. That just needs to be put out there. In case anybody forgot, Sirianni's a dope. He's a loser. I can't stand him. He won a championship that was gifted to him by Howie Rose, but he sucks. So I do want to see him cry, but outside of that, the game itself, but that's like literally the only thing that you're looking forward to because how are you getting hyped for Josh Johnson and Tanner McGee? You're not.
You can't.
You're not. And like, we're not homers to the point. Should I give the command tangibles before the show?
Why
like
not? We got some
command
time.
tangibles. This is why Washington's going to win. Like, we're just not going to do that. The game's going to suck. It's not going to be fun. But hopefully you get moments like inklings of plays that are good.
I want Ben Sinnott to flash.
A Ben Sinnott flash here. A Jordan McGee flash there. I mean,
Like
you are
multiple of those.
quite literally just spot watching. That's the only thing that we are going to do. A nice Jacory Krosky-Merritt home run here would be nice. That's the game. The result, who cares? The actual like longevity of the game is going to be tough to stomach, man. If you're coming to hang out with us at Honor Brewing, they got other TVs. This game is literally, there's not enough guys as a part of the core moving forward that make it exciting. Like at least in previous years, there were young players that you could get really excited about in a game that doesn't mean anything. We're grasping at straws for guys like Ben Sinnott and Jordan McGee. And I think McGee might have something. I love the way that Sinnott blocks, but I've said I loved the way that Sinnott blocks for 6 weeks now. And in the passing game, there's just nothing. And I'm not saying we give up on the man, but at a certain point, how many times can we say, I hope Sinnott makes a big play in the pass game before we are just the idiots twiddling their thumbs? Now, I've done some idiotic things. I bet Luke McCaffrey to score a touchdown every single week last year, as many of you know. But that was like a fun, idiotic thing. Waiting for Ben Sinnott to flash his tight end one when they can barely throw the football. That's a little silly. Thankfully, there are other football games going on. That's also, by the way, the reason we haven't spent a lot of time on the game this weekend is because what is the point? It's so much easier and so much more beneficial long-term to have the conversation we did about like a David Bailey, a Reuben Bain, and a Caleb Downs, who you would want Washington to pick, rather than, hey, what do you think they're going to do in the third quarter against Philadelphia and Tanner McGee? Is this when Josh Johnson finally has his career game at nearly 40 years old? Thank God there's some other games that matter. I do kind of have a love-hate with the NFL for putting the Panthers, Bucks, and Seahawks 49ers on Saturday. I just wanted a free Saturday. But I'll take this, Max. Like these are games that I will very much be locked into. More so Seahawks 49ers. I am not that interested in the Panthers Buccaneers. I'm just not, because I don't think either team is very good.
I as a slop enjoyer, I'll bang for the Bucks and Panthers here for a second. But the game that I really will have my eyes on is the Atlanta Falcons versus the New Orleans Saints.
You're locked in
because
you want to see Kyle Pitts, the future tight end of the Commanders.
Oh God, don't even get me started. But you know that like if the Falcons win, that's a 3-way, and the Bucks win, it would be a 3-way tie for first in the NFC South. But the Panthers own the tiebreaker and would make the playoffs. So the Bucks might still be SOL if the Falcons get the win over the Saints.
Which would be a hilarious turn of events.
It would be so NFC South.
See, now why is that game not at 4:25?
Great question.
You want an East Coast game at 4:25. Put that one at 4:25. Move Washington to 1 p.m. That way you get that one out of your system, and then you have a Sunday evening and afternoon that you can enjoy without watching a football team whose season effectively ended 6 weeks ago.
I should text Mike North about this. We had him on the show earlier before the season.
Yeah, hey, can you make a quick switch?
Yeah,
Just, swap those out. I'm way more interested in Seattle and San Francisco because I think both of those teams are good.
One seed on the line.
I want to see what Sam Darnold is going to look like, because the last time he had an opportunity to play for a 1 seed and a first-round bye, did not look very good. Now, granted, the Lions team they played was a really good one. In 2024, their season ended fantastically that year. I remember.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. But that was a really good team, and Sam Darnold was awful. I'd be curious to see what redemption looks like if there is a path for redemption. Brock Purdy looked really good against Chicago. I don't think Chicago is all that good. I think their record is really impressive. I think offensively they're really impressive. Defensively, there's a big drop-off as far as I'm concerned with Seattle and Chicago. And Seattle is at the top of that. Chicago is the drop-off there. Like this Seahawks defense, they are a bastard, man. Like they just come after you in every way, shape, or form. And I don't know how Brock Purdy is going to handle that, because when you look at what he has done over the past few weeks, and his numbers have been very, very impressive. There's no arguing that.
Very efficient.
But it's not like they're playing a bunch of really strong teams. I mean, their last 6 wins.
Yeah.
Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, Titans, Colts with Phillip Rivers, Bears. That's not exactly a Hall of Fame gauntlet kind of group that you're going up against there. So that there might be a rude awakening. The last time they played a good team was the Los Angeles Rams, and they lost that one. And then they played the Houston Texans earlier. That one was without Brock Purdy, but they lost that one. So I'm going to be curious to see if what we saw on Sunday night last week and everybody's love for Brock Purdy, is that just a prisoner of the moment kind of a deal, or is there actually a little bit of smoke to that fire? I think it is the former. I think it's prisoner of the moment, and I think Seattle is just a significantly better football team than San Francisco is. I'm stunned that San Francisco is a 1.5-point dog. I know it's at home for San Francisco, but I don't think that the 49ers stadium is like that big of a home field advantage.
Especially, I mean, Seahawks, West Coast, not that far to travel. You know what I mean?
No, it's. I've never taken a plane from Seattle to San Francisco. I would imagine it's max 90 minutes,
maybe 2.
Like it's
2 hours.
Let me look up here. Seattle to San Francisco. It really can't be that long. Just hop over a couple of mountains there. Yeah, 2 hours. You're right. 2 hours. 2 hours, 10 minutes. Very cheap. Oh wow.
Yeah,
you can fly Seattle to San Francisco for $117.
Alaskan Airlines got $16 flights. Oh, might be traveling this winter.
I live on the wrong coast.
Yeah, right.
I need Dulles and National to have some of these kind of prices. I was looking at something. I'm in like a national park kick. This is how we're going to end the show
Ooh.
because we're not like, who cares about the game?
No, let's talk parks. I like parks.
And my wife and I got that water bottle, the water bottle with all
Yeah.
the stickers. So we're
Mhm.
trying to like, fill out the,
You hit them all yet?
the water bottle. Oh, no.
Oh, you got to. That's the first one.
Oh,
They do stickers. It's a national park. It's the whole thing.
oh no. Sorry. I thought you said you hit them all. And I was like, no, we got a lot to go. We hit 4.
Nice.
But we're doing a trip next year or this year to hit 3 in one go. But I was like, man, like Big Bend in Texas seems sick. Like I'd love to go there. And then I found out how to get to Big Bend, and Lord have mercy,
it's a task.
It is a task. You got to fly to like San Antonio, and then it's a 4-hour drive. Or we could fly to El Paso. Do you know how far El Paso is from everywhere else in Texas?
Yeah.
Lord have mercy, bro. That's Texas is not even a real state. That's the way that state is designed is insane. El Paso is like 9 hours from everything. I don't know how that even
And
exists.
it's just drive through nothing.
It's nothing. Like, could y'all not have moved it? I don't know. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Big Bend. I will get there eventually, but that's what I ran into. I like Washington to lose against Philadelphia. Simple as that. It's not that I want them to lose, although I kind of do. I just don't think they're very good. And I think Philadelphia and Tanner McGee, there might be a little bit of something there. And I would just take Tanner McGee over Josh Johnson. But I hope it's close. I hope we get something like we did on Christmas to where Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has a couple of big plays. Maybe Terry has a big catch. But I think Washington loses, and then we go fully into the draft mode, and we can have these conversations for weeks to come about Ruben Bain and David Bailey and Caleb Downs and all of the conversations that we had today. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to those that observe it on the 2nd of January, the way that Dan Snyder once did. Big thanks to Max doing a great job producing radio and video today. Round of applause for Max doing both sides of the production, double duty. I am done. Kevin is back on Monday. If you want to come hang out with us at Honor Brewing on Sunday, please do so. We'll be there at 2 p.m. in Sterling. It'll be a great time. It'll be much better than the game itself, I promise. I'm out of here. Enjoy the weekend.
First off, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Stockton is out there. They just snap it. And he's under pressure. And sacked. And the ball has come out. Sunterian Perkins.
Oh, cock-a-doodle-doo, baby. Happy New Year to Ole Miss, but not to Georgia. No. Happy New Year. Lane Kiffin? I don't know. He made a lot more money last night, but boy, is it nice to not see him be able to really reap the reward. Sean McDonough last night, ESPN on the call, the only really good game of the day. That's right. The only really good game of the day. It is January 2nd. It is a feel-good football Friday in the nation's capital. We have nothing really to feel good about from a local team perspective. That's right. No Commanders, no Maryland, Virginia, or Virginia Tech in the college football playoff, but every Friday should lead to something good, i.e. the weekend, and a little bit of a chance for you to get a little breather. Maybe you have a 4-day weekend. Maybe you have a 9-day weekend and you haven't worked in a week and a half because of the holidays, whatever your deal is. God love you. Welcome aboard, one and all. If you're out and about shopping on a Friday, take us with you anywhere on the Odyssey app as well. iHeartRadio, tune in. If you can't listen to the show live, that's okay too. Make sure you check out the podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, like the Odyssey app, AMAC has everything cut up for you, easily identifiable. You don't have to download anything. You just listen. You can listen to every show, every hour, every segment, everything. We don't do a lot of guests, but the times that we do guests, you can listen to those as well, and away you go. And you can listen to it on your own time, I don't know, starting at 11 o'clock at night, Monday through Wednesday. No, I'm just having a little bit of fun with my guy, Linnell Willingham, who his new show is at 11 o'clock at night, Monday through Wednesday. Just having a little bit of fun. I hope everybody had, speaking of fun, a safe and fun and happy New Year. I hope you didn't do anything stupid. I did not do anything stupid. I had a sip of champagne and a lot of Diet Coke. A lot of Diet Coke. That is how I roll these days, boys and girls. I did have a beer Wednesday afternoon in the Vault Suites at Capital One Arena, thanks to my guy JVS, Jim Van Stone, for always taking care of the Rooster and fam. I got to take my son to the Caps Rangers game. He sat right on the glass, and he got to see his favorite player, Tom Wilson, score goal number 199, 200, get the Gordie Howe hat trick plus. What that means is a goal, an assist, a fight. Well, he had a goal. He had 2 goals. He had an assist. He had a fight.